Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast, is available on all mainstream audio and video feeds. Find out how you can support the show by heading over to patreon.com/criticalframes.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast. I am Bryan, with my co-host Joe here to talk about a lot of interesting PlayStation news. It's been another big week for the boys in blue, and we are the boys in black, and we're here to bring you your most interesting, most entertaining podcast of the week. But before we get into the news, I want to pass it over to Joe and say, how was your week? What have you been up to, buddy?
It's just tiring stuff, bro. You know how last week I said, we moved, web servers and not hosts, but web servers, and we got the host to do that, and we were just waiting for DNS propagation and stuff, which is just technical terms for basically you're waiting for the website to sync up across the world because there's caches online, right, where people can see different things, old versions of websites, etc. And it can take, depending on how you set it up, 4 to 48 hours, whatever. Let's just say it didn't go as smooth as I initially thought. I was saying we were waiting for DNS propagation on the last episode. It wasn't the case. The people that moved it actually just fucked up the settings royally, activated a setting that didn't need to happen, didn't need to be there, and basically messed up all the DNSing. My webcam's just gone all weird as well.
I was just saying, you're super dark now. Yeah.
Don't worry. And it just went incredibly strange. And we got to a point where I had to get in touch with them, sort them out. And I had to do some troubleshooting myself. And it was just very odd. It was very odd. And it stressed my entire week out. It fucked up all the emails in the office. So it was all on my shoulders to fix. And because of that, I've not really been gaming because when you're tired from work, you just want to come home and just not do anything and just oh fuck it, whatever.
Gaming requires effort, and sometimes it's too much.
Yeah, and when it's a game like Astrobot, which I'm still trying to complete, and it's that high energy, it's I can't really be doing that stuff.
Yeah, everyone's ew, ooh,
yeah,
and
I'm
you're
just this. So this week I've not really been gaming, so that section of the podcast will be left for Bryan to talk about one of my favorite games that he's been playing, which will be exciting to hear about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fix this webcam while you talk about your week, Bryan. Because
you look like you're literally in BT territory right now.
Yeah,
super
they're dragging
dark.
me down. Yeah,
that's interesting. For my week, basically, I don't know if I've done anything too interesting. Been playing Death Stranding, which we'll talk about later, which is pretty cool. But also, I think the biggest thing that happened this week, and it's not really that big at all, is my daughter's daycare said she was sad and wasn't playing with anybody. So then I picked her up early and we went and got McDonald's, and she seemed really happy. And then a day later, my wife dropped her off at daycare, and some kid called her a poopy butt or something like that. And
Jesus.
I would normally be oh, who cares? That's harmless. But they're 2, and she was sad earlier in the week. So I'm I wonder if kids are making fun of her, and if that's why she's sad, which that kind of bothered me. I'd never felt that before as a dad, my daughter being picked on. So
I guess it's going to come more. It might not saying it will, but just how kids are, it might happen more now that she's getting into that age of we call it primary school, you guys call it elementary school, but I guess once the kids start to become, because kids are just rude, bro. They're just arseholes. Sometimes they just want to be that way, right? For no reason.
Kids are evil. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is she's 2 years old, so she got moved into the 2-year-old class, but the 2-year-old class goes from 2 to 4. Mm-hmm. So she's one of the youngest kids in the class. So most of the kids in the class don't poop their diapers anymore. Right. But she does. Right. So she might, get made fun of for that. So I don't know.
Every kid develops differently and slower or faster and stuff. I always talk about the time when I had a friend back in secondary school, obviously way past your daughter's age, but he grew very quickly compared to pretty much all of us. But he kind of peaked, he stopped because his dad's not that tall and stuff. He doesn't come from tall parents. And then so he used to take the piss, oh yeah, you're really small, Joe, for ages. And then I went past him, and I was like, yeah, well, what about it now, bro?
You like, sit down, bitch.
Sit down, little boy. But yeah, so the kids just need to be more understanding, but telling them that is like it's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, they don't have the awareness that adults do. And honestly, some adults don't have the awareness either, but kids generally don't have it at all. So
yeah.
But otherwise, it's been a pretty good week. I'm glad it's the weekend. I'm looking forward to relaxing more, playing some games. I know you're going to do the same this weekend. But you ready to get into the news, Joe?
Let's do it, because we've got quite a lot, right? We've got a decent
We
amount.
do lots of actual tangible PlayStation news here. So first, we're going to go over to Gamatsu, where they talk about the Sony TGS lineup for what's going to be on the schedule there. Sony's coming back to TGS for the first time in like 5 years. So reading ahead here, it says, following a preliminary announcement in August, Sony Interactive Entertainment has announced its full games lineup and stage schedule for Tokyo Game Show 2024, which will run from September 26th to 29th at Makari Messi in Chiba, Japan. I just realized the TGS Game Show is literally starting the same day that pre-orders go up for the PS5 Pro, so that'll be kind of hectic.
Yeah.
So here is the lineup. 10 demo stations for Astrobot, which, for me, I'm always like, who cares? Like, we already own the game, but that's not everybody who's there. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero from Bandai Namco, Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake from Square Enix, Dynasty Warriors Origins from Koei Tecmo, Infinity Nikki from Infold Games, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater from Konami, Metaphor Refantasio Atlas from Atlas, Monster Hunter Wilds from Capcom with 40 demo stations, a game called Neva. Oh, I remember that game. Neva from Devolver Digital. PlayStation 5 Pro, 2 demo stations featuring Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Gran Turismo 7, and Sonic X Shadow Generations. And then, let's see, that's the playable games don't line up. So then we go into stage schedule. Astrobot Play, which I guess is just them playing Astrobot for people. Let's Play Indie Games with Shuhei Yoshida. That'll be cool. Silent Hill 2 from Konami. More Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and Metaphor Refantasio. That's on September 28th. And then the last day will be PlayStation Presents Death Stranding 2 on the Beach special stage. Kojima Productions will host a panel discussion on Death Stranding 2 on the Beach for PlayStation 5. Visionary game creator Hideo Kojima and Daiichi Miura, singer-songwriter and official supporter of Tokyo Game Show 2024, will be joined by a number of guests, including Nicholas Winding Refn, to discuss the upcoming title. Attendees will be given a front row seat to the latest update in the development of Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, featuring Hideo Kojima, Daiichi Miura, Kenjiro Tsuda, and Nana Mizuki. Tomokazu Sugita. Shion Wakayama, and Nicholas Winding Refn. And then finally Monster Hunter Wilds and Dynasty Warriors Origins. So it's interesting. A lot of people have been like, oh, is TGS going to be where Sony finally like unveils like what they're doing first party? And people have been saying, like, people in the industry have been saying, like, who know things are like, no, they're still not going to go into their first party. And I think it's pretty clear here that, like, Sony's doing really well. They got a new variant of the console coming out. They're selling tons of consoles. And I think Death Stranding 2 looks to be their next big, like, Sony exclusive push. Now, it's still not first party, but I mean, I kind of hate how uppity we all get about like what's first party and what's not, because like it actually doesn't matter at all if you like the game that's coming out to the console, right? Like Death Stranding 2, like if it's Death Stranding 2 versus Ghost of Tsushima 2 next year, Joe, like you're going to care more about Death Stranding 2, right?
I am
like,
personally, yeah.
You are personally, because you're such a huge fan of Death Stranding. So it's like, it doesn't really matter that one's first party and one's just an exclusive deal. A lot of things that we already know about, of course, here. But what do you think, Joe? What do you think about this lineup? What are you looking forward to the most? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the stuff we come to expect from Tokyo Game Show. The same thing, especially with Death Stranding, the same thing happened pre-Death Stranding 1. Like, and actually, Kojima kept it very close to his chest as to what Death Stranding was at the Tokyo Game Show that year. And, like pre-launch. So it was kind of like, everyone was like, I think the game came out, was it like November or October time, or was it even, I can't remember exactly.
2019, yeah.
Yeah, and it was definitely like fall period. And it was like, everyone didn't know what it was for ages. Like none of the trailers let on, even if you watch all the way through, it's like everyone was really anticipating this game. And then he came out and was just like, showed the gameplay off on stage, talked to everyone, went through the gameplay, talked about the concept of the game, really quite in depth. And then that's kind of either when everyone was like, okay, that's still kind of cool. I like that, which was like me. I was like, I love Kojima, I love Metal Gear. I'm in for that. But then he was also like, but then there was also another side of people, especially in the Western market, Americas and Europe, that were like, this is fucking weird. It's stupid. So it's a delivery. You walk around. That's all you do. And it's like, yeah, basically. So this is kind of very similar. He's coming on. He's very big in Japan, Kojima. So that makes sense. For the other things like shown here or to be shown here, like Silent Hill 2 by Konami is exciting. More details on that. We definitely need it because I feel like that game as well is it's had more trailers than Death Stranding, seemingly so, especially gameplay stuff. But it's closer to launch, of course. So this is more promo centric, I will assume. Then,
see, I feel like I've seen too much Silent Hill 2. Like I don't want to see it anymore. At this point, I'm just waiting for reviews, and then if the reviews are decent, I'm buying it. Yeah.
I mean, it's a 40-minute difference compared to an hour difference in presentation for Silent Hill. So it's going to be much more succinct on that day. Yeah, and I think what this is just kind of like that last final push for like especially Japanese gamers to basically be like, this game is going to be fire, buy our game, the final bit of promo outside of like, your launch trailers and stuff. It's what I come to expect. I'm actually quite excited for this because I've always liked Tokyo Game Show because it's kind of like the PC gaming show or whatever. They have it like the Summer Game Fest where it feels like it's for the enthusiast in many ways. I know like the Game Awards and stuff is for the enthusiast as well, but there's something about like the way the Tokyo Game Show is paced in terms of there's not that many announcements and it's not that overburdening with, just like trailers and marketing and stuff, that it feels like it's just developers coming on and being like, okay, this is my game, this is my slot. I'm going to give you, a tour of it and you can demo maybe it. I guess the only thing I really want to touch on aside from this is like the Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater demo on the show floor. I feel like they're just going to put up to the people on the show floor, on the demo floor, is just the same stuff they gave to like GameSpot and stuff. I think they're going to give pre-Virtuous, the Virtuous mission, sorry, pre when he gets his arm broken, thrown off the swingy ropey bridge by the boss. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see kind of what the impressions are to the wild. I assume they're going to be consistent with what like GameSpot and all those guys have like reviewed it as. I'm sure it'd be pretty positive, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see the general consensus on that. So yeah, I'm excited to. I'm not going to watch this live. Probably I might probably tune in for the Death Stranding thing as soon as that's up. Maybe watch that at work while I do some work. But yeah, I'm excited for that. That's obviously definitely going to be my highlight of the show. So.
I'm starting to think that Metal Gear Solid Delta is like a January, February, March release of 25.
I wonder if like it seems like it's ready to go in many ways. I wonder what like they're probably still polishing it up. It's technically not gone gold yet, as far as I'm aware. I don't think so. So it's one of those things where I wonder if they kind of like taken their time with it because they know Kojima's work's coming out like, later on, and they kind of want to like pace it out and stuff like that. And also like maybe in terms of the promo and stuff, they kind of have like respect for him in that way. So I don't know. It's we'll see. Yeah,
it does keep seeming like it's going to be a this year release, but like we're late September. It kind of feels like they should have announced it by now. If it's going to be out this year,
they would probably also want to try and get into like the capture window of the Game Awards as well. So if they release it too late in the year, it might not fit into Jeff's show. In terms
do you
of
think it would? What do you think it would win at Game Awards? Like even if it's really good, like,
maybe
would it be able to like be treated as a new game? I guess it would because Resident Evil 4. Yeah. I guess Resident Evil 4 remake was up for Game of the Year.
Yeah, it's weird, right? So. Because like this is the problem because more studios need to make like stealth games because it would be so cool to have like a dedicated stealth like award genre thing, like best stealth game of 2024 or something. That would be so cool. But because they're such a niche and in many ways like archaic, forgotten about genre now that Metal Gear's died and Splinter Cell has. It's kind of like no one cares about them anymore, and that makes me sad.
I mean, I feel like the most common stealth is like your arcane type Dishonored, Deathloop stealth. I don't know. I never played that one.
I think you can play it stealth. I've never played it, but I think there's an option.
I think actually, I think you just said it best. I think the most common stealth nowadays is optional stealth in games that aren't about stealth.
Yeah, like Sony stealth in many ways, like Ghost of Tsushima or Ubisoft or whatever. Yeah.
Man, how mad would you be if there was the next God of War was like Kratos? He was all stealth. Oh man, it'd be terrible.
Yeah, you see, like I love my stealth. I want it to come back in a big way, that genre, because
it's got to fit thematically.
It's got to fit into that narrative, bro. If you start like chucking in like Kratos and shit like that, then like, you know, like, things like, you know, some PS4 and some PlayStation titles just work with it. You know, like Last of Us works with it perfectly well, but no one needs to see. I mean, I could see Atreus doing it. But like that would have to be a whole other game, and no one wants to just play as Atreus. Let's be honest. So
yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, I'm excited mainly for Death Stranding 2, just because I'm at the beginning of my journey to become a Death Stranding fan. I'm currently playing Death Stranding for the first time, so I'm very excited to see more of 2, and hopefully. Even obviously this will be like a year in advance, but it'd be cool if we got like a release date window or just a release date like. Death Stranding 2, November 11th, 2025. You know, like that's definitely next year.
Yeah,
but
definitely
that'd be cool. I will like to see. I think I've seen enough of Metal Gear Solid Delta and Silent Hill 2. I just want to buy both those games, provided they're good.
You say really, that, but you haven't. Yeah. I know you have the blessing of like hindsight with the old Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, but we haven't like had full, proper, like uncut gameplay yet of that game. Like it's kind of like. Segments, right? Like segments cut up for promotional purposes, and then like they again, just I guess just like Death Stranding's trailers in many ways, they've kept it very close to their chest in that regard, like the details and everything, even in that like that preview process with the GameSpot and everything, like I've said. But I guess the thing is, we have the blessing of hindsight. You can't, you know what Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater is going to play like, or Delta Remake is going to play like because of the old game. You know what I'm saying? So you can kind of put 2 and 2 together. But yeah, I want to see more, just because I want to see like it purely uncut. Because I've like rigorously been looking at all like the footage from those previews, and you know, like little bits and bobs, and even like the intro cutscene and stuff in the C-130. And holy fuck, it does look good. Like it looks really good. So,
yeah, I mean, you're the big fan here, so you want to see more of that. Like, I guess for me, it's just like I don't really know anything about Metal Gear Solid, 3 at this point. So like, I just want to play it when it comes out, because if it comes out soon, that might be my first Metal Gear. I know that's probably not how you want me to go about it, but if it just like came out, let's say it came out in November, there's a decent chance when November arrives, I haven't played one of the other MGS games yet, and I would just play that first to get myself interested.
It's a very weird thing, because like I think everyone, when they like, I say this genuinely, when everyone should play Metal Gear as it's released, because all like the twists and the plot changes and like all the characters and everything, they flow better when you play. Like, I play them both ways. I play them timeline chronologically, and I play them release chronologically. And I genuinely say this, like, play it as Kojima wrote it and intended and put them out, because otherwise he would have done it the opposite way. You know, he'd have done the Snake Eater first.
That goes for most franchises. I feel like.
100%. But there is something cool about jumping into Snake Eater first. I can kind of get, because there's a level of like, it's all fresh in your mind, and it's all kind of, it doesn't rely on, because it's the first in the timeline, obviously, it doesn't rely on like back and forthing as much. It just kind of like, this is you know, in the Cold War era, you don't really need to know anything, just go for it. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of weird, because if you played the series, this is the thing, if you played the Master Collection now, and you like got all the way up to Metal Gear Solid 3 in the Master Collection, and then you played the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, like, would you be on burnout? That's the question, because this remake is not like a re-envisionment of the franchise, right? Like, it's not kind of an RE4 or an RE2 level remake. But it would be the first
one I'd play that was third person, right? Like camera.
Well, no, because like, you would play Metal Gear Solid 3.
Like, I'm saying, like, if I went Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and then played the remake Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I would honestly say just play the old one at that point. If you've gone through the entire.
Well, I'm just saying, like, what if I got to the third one at the same time this released? Then it'd be like, I'm not going to want to play both, probably.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think. Yeah, and since this seems to be so authentic and just a better, more refined version of what Kojima made all those years ago,
I think they said that, like, they're just not changing much at all.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest criticisms for the previews was that it was like all still chopped up in terms of the loading screens in the different areas.
And the levels were not all one.
Yeah, they were like, but we'd have to redesign everything if we were going to do that. And we wanted it to flow very, very, if not the same as the original game, because they analyzed how it all ran and stuff and felt. And it was like, you know what, that doesn't feel dated. And in many ways, I agree with them. There was never a point in I probably played that game like 9 times. I don't think I've ever felt like, oh, the moving between areas, that sucks. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Cool. Moving on to the next bit of news. This is from PlayStation Blog, celebrating 30 years of PlayStation with a nostalgic look. Limited edition console design takes PS5 back to the early days of PlayStation. So for celebrating the 30th year of PlayStation, Sony is releasing a very limited slew of PS5 hardware that is designed specifically after the gray original PS1. They have the PS5 Slim, the PS5 Pro, the attachable disc drive, actually, even in the color as well. The DualSense controller, I should say. I think the Edge controller is even an option, if I remember right. It's probably down in here somewhere.
It does. It has an option in the bundle, yeah.
And then also the PlayStation Portal. So you get like the original gray look with all the colored face buttons. Yeah. But this is limited to like just over 12,000 units, which on a global scale is like nothing.
I would also like to say that the actual disk drive is not a disk drive; it's just the cover for the disk drive.
Oh, so you have to buy the disk drive, and then you have. Does the cover come with all versions of the like console? Though I wonder.
So according to, I guess the PS5 Pro, so here's what it says. So PS5 Pro console 30th anniversary limited edition bundle includes the limited edition PS5 Pro console with 2 terabytes of SSD, which is a fuck ton, Wi-Fi 7 in territories supporting the standard and matching limited edition accessories, DualSense wireless controller, DualSense Edge wireless controller, DualSense charging station, and a console cover for a disk drive sold separately. It also includes a vertical stand and special collector's items. So that's the Pro. So, and then the digital edition, I guess I'll go on if you want me to, Brian.
Go ahead.
So the PS5 digital edition, 30th anniversary bundle it includes the limited edition PS5 digital edition console with 1 terabyte SSD and matching limited edition accessories, DualSense wireless controller, and a console cover for a disk drive. Disk drive sold separately. It also includes a vertical stand and special collector's items. So, there you go.
Yeah, and then they also include this cable to make your charging cable look
really
like
good.
it makes your PlayStation 5 DualSense charging cable look like a PS1 controller plug-in. It's really badass. So it's funny because the whole conversation after the PS5 Pro was announced was like, it was either people being like, I mean, the loudest people were basically like, that's too overpriced and it doesn't look needed. It sucks. Don't get it. And then there's some people who are like, oh, it's the best thing. It's the best version, a way to play PlayStation. So I'm getting to day one. Yep. And then you had, and I think realistically, there's a lot of people who just want it, but are just mad that it's going to cost them a lot of money, right? Like, I want it. I don't really have the money. So, but I've never been the person who was like, oh, this is stupid. But then of course this comes out and it's the 30th edition console. And then people were like, well, now I have a reason to get the Pro. And it's like, well, you can get the original one too and all this stuff. But I think, the truth is we all just like the new hotness. We like the new stuff, the new shiny. Yep. And I already thought it was going to be hard enough to get a PS5 Pro when they go live on the 26th. But I cannot imagine how hard. I would think the second they press the button for the anniversaries to go up, it would just say sold out.
Yeah.
Because everyone, crazy, man. But so Joe, like we talked about this a little bit through the week. I would love to get a PlayStation 5 Pro. If I could somehow make that happen, I would. I don't think that's going to happen for me. I don't really have it in the cards, but I've contemplated trying to sell some stuff to maybe get one just because it'd be awesome to have, but I don't need it. But then Joe was like, ooh, this 30th anniversary of PlayStation. Joe, how serious are you on a scale of 1 to 10 of trying to get a PS5 Pro? And is it specifically for this one, or you still would go for the white if this was out? So
this console, like, I've never really been one to buy limited edition PlayStation consoles. Mm-hmm. I had the Reach one for Xbox 360, but I didn't have any. I've never really gone for any sort of special edition PlayStation console just because I never really got around to it, and I've always liked just the base models, whether it's PS2, PS1, whatever. This is gorgeous. This makes me want to buy it, but I have some like problems with it in the sense that I don't know what the price is of this, and they can't. They're holding out on the price. They're holding out on the price because like they know like this is gonna be expensive. Like I was talking to my colleague, I was like, because he was talking about like the pricing of the PS5 Pro, the normal one and stuff, like and how ridiculous it is and stuff. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. And he was like, and then I was telling him about the 30th anniversary version. He was like, yeah, that's gonna be like $1,000, like £1,000. And I was like, maybe.
Well, like you're gonna want to buy the disc drive as well.
Yes.
I'm guessing you're gonna want to buy the stand as well.
Yes.
So let's say if like just because this is special edition, there's a $50 upcharge, plus 80 for the drive, plus 30 for the stand, plus your region's pricing, plus tax. Yeah, bro, you just bought yourself a new gaming PC.
Yeah. But like I'm looking at it and I'm like, you know what? Like if I keep this in mint condition, I keep the box. I keep it as good as I possibly can do.
Which the box looks like the original PS1 box, which is amazing.
Yeah, like the black one, yeah. Like maybe like in years' time, I keep the console and maybe I sell it and it's like a proper collector's item, you know? Like,
well, I mean, once a PS6 was out, maybe you'd want to sell it, and then you could sell it for
maybe it could like sell for as much as a PS6 because it's so rare. You don't know, like. And
I mean, if there's truly only 12,000 some, if I
get it, I'm going to try. Just because, fuck it. Like, why not? But it's one of those things where I just wish they told me the price. Fuck all that PR, like, scaredness shit. Yeah. Put your big dick on the table and tell me how much it is, just so I can...
Well, I think they need some recovery time because they put their big dick on the table for the Pro last week.
They should have waited. They should have been like this when they were going to release the price in a week's time when we talk about another special announcement. And then but bro, like
I think this is a special. This is a routine rollout here, Joe. They're like show off the console with Mark Cerny, sticker price shock, give it a week. Okay, 30th anniversary of console. That'll lighten it up a little bit. And what are they going? And then they're gonna have a TGS, and we'll see Death Stranding 2 and more of the Pro. And then as the year goes on, they're going to keep lightening, like trying to smooth everyone over.
I also think 12,500 copies is like supply and demand, like smart as fuck, like trying to get people in, including myself, like wanting it. Mm-hmm. I literally just said about the value of this console in years' time. So they know this. Obviously, these analysts will be very smart with this shit.
Didn't they make a PS4 look like this, or am I making that up?
They made a PS4 look like this, but I think it was a dark blue one. It was like kind of...
I thought it was a gray color one.
Maybe I'm tripping, but they had a dark blue one as well that had like yellow, gold accents on it. Do you remember that one?
I don't.
You don't remember that one? Anyway, yeah. So I think that was for the 20th anniversary, right?
25th
anniversary.
Well, 25th would have been right before the PS5 came out. So.
25th anniversary PS4 console. Let's see. Let's have a look. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they did do a great one. Yeah. I must have missed that because I wasn't paying attention. But yeah, that looks gorgeous as well.
Now, here's what you do, Joe. Go on eBay and see what it costs to get that PS4 version of this. Now, what's that cost? God! So hang on. That could give you an idea of how yours will go up in value for the PS5.
Hang on. It is sealed though. Hang on. PlayStation 4 20th anniversary. I'm typing it right into eBay right now. Hang on. Let's have a look. Holy shit, some are ridiculous. Like, some are like £2,000, which I think they're never going to sell, but some are as low as... Oh, no, they're glacier white. Oh, that's weird. I don't know. I think you're looking at like sub £1,000, but it depends. Like, if they're factory and they're sealed, people are listing them for £1,300, which is like
because somebody out there is like, I gotta have the PS4 and the PS5 in this version, so they're gonna pay out the wazoo. I don't think they ever did it for PS2 or 3. I think it was just PS4.
I can't remember. No, I was probably too young to even remember at that point. But This looks gorgeous. It's one of those things where like I'm gonna probably like sit in some cook groups because I know some. You know what that is? A cook group?
No, I don't.
So it's like where you sit in like a Discord or whatever, and like you all just like notify each other when there's like drops and stuff like this, whether shoes or whether consoles. It happened with the PS5 launch. Like whenever they got restocked in COVID, it was like guys, it's in, get in it now. Like it's like a community driven anti-scalpers kind of job, even though scalpers sit in there. So I'm probably gonna sit in them just because they're not. This is the thing with PlayStation; they're not very clear on when they go live. It's like, oh yeah, it's on this day, but it's like, okay, yeah, but you've literally got thousands of units. I need the time. Like, you know what I mean? So,
like, we don't care. We're gonna sell them either way.
Yeah. And I got lucky with the PlayStation controller, the Astrobot controller. So I have to be on my A game but again, it's going to be like a split second, like monetary decision. Like, do I want to buy this bundle? And I have to think now, because if I don't, then I'm going to miss it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe they'll make it easy for you, and it'll be like the base price of this without the disc drive and things, like $1,000, like without anything. And then you'd be like, I'm just probably not. And I kind of want to get it though, just so I can talk about it on the podcast as well. You know, that'd be awesome. It'd be awesome, dude. I mean, there's still a very, very, very small chance that I'll try to get a regular PS5 Pro in 6 days, but we'll see if any of my crap. I put a bunch of my Nintendo stuff up for sale, but it's really good stuff. But I don't know.
If I do get the special edition, that motherfucker gonna be protected like hell. Like, I'm gonna put like bubble wrap around that motherfucker and everything, bro, because I don't want those scuffs on those plates.
What would you do if your sister like put a dent in it? I'm
smashing a room up.
Oh, I figured it'd be worse than that. Like, where's the body, Joe? Where did you put the body?
Yeah, but this looks. I think it looks gorgeous. I gotta admit, like, special edition consoles now really do it for me. Like, not all of them, like things like like launch consoles, like Spider-Man ones and stuff. I'm just like, like that doesn't interest me. I'm more actually inclined to buy a controller now for a game rather than a console.
Well, the thing is, with this console, it still looks like a PS5. Like it looks like a different color design for PS5, where Spider-Man console looks like, like that was my OCD. I was always like, I don't want to own like game-centric consoles, because it's like, I don't want to play Last of Us on my Spider-Man console, which is like, it doesn't really matter, but it's just, it's weird because like when you're not in a Spider-Man mood, you're gonna look down at your console and see Spider-Man going, and you're gonna be like, dude, bro, I want to play Death Stranding. Get off my console,
bro. I'm trying to get all those mountains. I'm trying to kill people in Last of Us, bro.
I'm not in a Marvel mood, bro. Fuck off.
Yeah. But I would also say, just like regardless of like what it actually references and like all that, I think it just genuinely, this color scheme just complements the PlayStation 5 way better than whatever the hell they have going on stock wise. The white, maybe like, why not go, for the next generation of the PS6, like just go for a gray, like try for like a retro style gray console to harken back. Like, you don't have to wait for special editions for this, Sony. Like,
2 words for you, Joe: Dubai Tower.
Okay, go back to the PS4 design, make it gray, and just make it look nice. Four
funny
stacks
they did this,
if you need.
It's funny they did the same thing for the PS5 though, because I remember for the PS4, when the PS4 Pro came out, I was like, okay, I want the PS4 Pro, but the PS4 Slim looks cooler to me than a PS4 Pro. I think that the PS5 Slim here looks cooler than the Pro. Of course, I'd get the Pro though. Like, I don't know, like I don't need like 3 ribs, you know. But
I will say the PS5 Pro looks nicer for me personally. I like the 3
ribs. You like the ribs, huh? You want to get ribbed.
I want to get ribbed. But I also say, one thing I will say is I think the digital consoles just look so good without the disc drive. It's just that
I have. I have the original digital.
I just have discs. So it's like, I feel like I'm tethered to that. And it's kind of that's why that is one. Now that I'm starting to think about it, like, I know I spoke about like the disc drive and everything on the last episode with the PS5, like when it was announced, but I genuinely think like I'm at a point now where it's like, I kind of think you need the disc drive, you know, for people like me. Now, like, I've actually gone back and thought about it. Like, I've just bought Astrobot on physical. Like, if you're going to do this, like where there's no disc drive and stuff, like, you got to stop selling physical completely now. Like, seriously, like, why are you beating around the bush with it, Sony? But yeah,
that's the tough thing, right? It's like if because as we all assume, going forward with consoles, your library is gonna come with you. So if it's like, halfway through the PlayStation 6 is when they're going to drop discs entirely. Yeah. Okay, well then that means the PS7 would not be able to play my discs because you dropped it. You know what I mean? Like, even if the PS7 played PS6 games, if it doesn't play discs, then what?
Yeah.
So it's kind of putting everybody in a tough position there.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, let's move on to our next story because we can segue right into that. So this comes from Insider Gaming. Some news about the PS6 has cropped up lately in the midst of all this PS5 Pro talk. It's kind of, for me, someone like me, it's kind of sickening to hear this because I'm like, the PS5 still feels so new and fresh to me, and I don't even want to think about having to get into the next gen. But the reality is we are less than 4 years away, I'm probably, from this console being real and in our homes. So this is from Tom Henderson, and it says the PlayStation 6 has 2 SOCs in development, it's claimed, which SOC stands for System on a Chip. A reputable leaker has claimed that the PlayStation 6 currently has 2 SOCs, System on a Chip, in development. That's according to Kepler L2, who made the comment on the NeoGAF forums following discussions about the PlayStation 6's price. Kepler, who has a fairly strong track record when it comes to reporting on hardware chips, says the PS6 currently has 2 SOCs in development, but it's unclear what exactly this means for the console. Kepler said there's 2 SOCs in development for next gen. I don't know if it's a Series X and S situation or a home console plus handheld, but probably one of them will be affordable at least. So basically, this just means that the PlayStation 6 is being designed so that it's going to have 2 different SKUs. We don't know to what extent that is. Like it says here in the article, with the Xbox, it was the Xbox Series S and X. S was cheaper, less powerful, kind of a 1080p console, where the X was more of a 4K, but you could get in at a lower price. And the architecture is the same, so everything's compatible. You can, have all the same stuff, just not as high resolution or frame rates. But I would lean more towards it's going to be a console and a handheld, because that's what a lot of rumors have been saying is like, we've seen the success of the Switch. We've seen the success of Steam taking the Switch's idea, but then bringing like PC power to it, and how people love that and having their libraries and on the go and stuff. And I think Sony and Microsoft both want to get in on this. So I would guess that this is going to be PlayStation 6 console. And what they might do, and this is maybe too far, I don't know, but like maybe the PlayStation 6 console will be like $700, but then the PlayStation 6 portable will be like $500, but it has like a dock like the Switch. It's like it's the lower version of the PS6, but it's also handheld, and they can really appeal to different audiences. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think for sure, whichever version of the console is the better one, is probably going to be like $700+ It's going to be really expensive, I think.
So here's the question: if they do the dock, are they going to do like what they've done with disk drive and charge separately for it?
Probably. Yeah, probably. Sony will. Nintendo won't, but Sony will.
Yeah.
But here's what's really interesting, and I want to clarify that this is 100% not my thoughts or my ideas at all. I literally listened to a Sacred Symbols Plus, Colin Moriarty's podcast. I listened to it just a few days ago. He had, I think it was Moore's Law is Dead on the show.
That's about right, yeah.
And he said something that I never, ever occurred to me. So if you recall, people listening here now, Joe and I have reported on the idea being that like maybe Sony's working on a PS4 portable, where it's like a portable that can play PS4 quality games. And a lot of people thought that seemed pretty credible because, that hardware is in a place where it could be in a portable form and be affordable. It would make sense. People still love the PS4. They play on the PS4. A lot of us are still playing PS4 content on our PS5s. But on Colin's podcast, what this guy from Moore's Law is Dead said is he actually thinks that they're going to make a PS6 and a PS6 handheld. And the handheld will have the same CPU as the PS6, but everything else will be trimmed way down, so it can be in a portable form and it can be more affordable. But the idea then would be that when you go to buy a PS6, it's all one architecture, it's unified, same CPU, and you can literally buy, Elden Ring 2 on PS6 and play it on your PS6 handheld. And like, I never thought of that because I thought like, PS6 is going to be cutting edge. So it's like, how could you have a portable of the PS6? But it's like, if literally it's just the die cast for that one chip is the same across both, then they could just the GPU could be worse, the clock rates, the watts and all that stuff. So that's a really interesting idea. But anyways, before I pass it over to you, Joe, I'll just say, I think this is going to be a console and a handheld. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think it's definitely gonna be a handheld. Even if it's just like a PS Portal 2 or something. Yeah, at the very least. I can't see it being a PS Vita 2. or a PSP2.
No, Vita's a dead name, even though it means life.
In the traditional sense, because I genuinely can't see it happening, just because the whole idea of like splitting your studios to make, different games based on different architecture completely with different goals and aspirations is kind of a thing of the past in many ways. Like the Switch has proven that, the Valve Steam Deck has proven that. And it's just kind of like the best way to have your portable games now is exactly that. It's not that the games have to be portable games, it's that your games have to be games and then also taken on the go. And I think that's really important for an ecosystem going forward, because I don't know, I just think, like, when you look at PS Vita and like how it failed because there was just a lack of support for all things services and games, within that system. And like I said, just the Switch has proved it. I think to go into a market that is very 7th gen in that regard and try and claim back the days of like the Game Boy and shit, I can't see it being a thing that Sony looks at and goes, that's a logical thing to do after what happened with the Vita. So I think you're pretty bang on with what you're saying based on what Moore's Law is dead said on Sacred Symbols. And if anything, that guy is fucking reliable as shit, because like he talks on all sorts of crap, like PS3 emulation and everything that's slightly been confirmed and stuff. And I can see it. I can totally see it. I can totally see that happening. A unified set of platforms under one ecosystem. And I think it kind of has a level of, they're taking it to Xbox in that way. I like Xbox are always on about accessibility and streaming over the cloud and stuff like that, and Game Pass everywhere, going on your TVs and shit and all that.
Well, this reiterates that Xbox needs to get on it, because if I get even a whiff that I am within breathing territory of a PlayStation portable release, console release, I'm not buying an Xbox One.
Yep.
And if let's say tomorrow an Xbox portable came out, I'll probably buy one, because it's gonna play everything I own. I own Halo and Gears and all these games. Like, heck yeah, I can play I already got a huge library. But if like, let's say Microsoft comes out, and says next year we're releasing the Xbox portable, and then Sony says, so are we, I'm going to go, okay, well, I'm just going to get the Sony one. I'm not buying Xbox.
100%. It would be if the PlayStation came out with the portable console for that generation, and it does all the things you've said, it's kind of eating Xbox's lunch at that point, because Xbox kind of needs to jump the gun, secure the pre-order sales for it before PlayStation announce that. So that people are going, like, it needs to
look like Microsoft's idea, because most people won't look at all this nerdy news like us, and they'll just look at it as, oh, Xbox, they copied Xbox, which is funny, because like, especially when like a product comes out 6 months later, it's like there's no time for a company to copy you in 6 months. Like, so
100%. Yeah, I mean the patent hasn't even gone through at that point. So 100%. I'm excited for this. I think this kind of like goes into our talking point later on in our special conversation that we're going to get onto, which I won't spoil right now, but it would probably be the first time like I probably truly invest in a handheld console if this is the case. Like, I have a Switch. I won't probably buy the Switch 2. I'll probably look at it and go, oh, that's the new shiny, new Zelda. Oh, that's exciting. But I think I'm going to, for the Switch 2, I'm going to be like, no, I don't need it, Joe. Just calm down.
But see, what would be perfect for you though, Joe, is if you're like your PS6, you play on your console, then you go to your dad's or something, for a few days. You take your portable, you play it, and then you come back, you go right back to your console. If it's like easy cloud, bro,
like after you told me about your PS Portal experience, and obviously like the problems you have with like Erica's profile and your profile, not like the weird syncing thing and signing in. That's obviously not a bother to me, because my PlayStation's mine, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, you'll be the only one.
It's only got one profile on it. I was even considering getting a Portal. I was like, that is a really good idea. Like, I've got good enough internet at various places where I spend my time. Fuck it, I'll give it a go. But I was looking at the prices, and I was like, Joe, you're being a bit indulgent. You don't need it. And I'm glad I didn't buy it. But if it's like a native handheld and it's got streaming services and it's got all that shit, fucking hell. Even if they like decide to use Azure Tech streaming service, which they do anyway for their premium shite that they have going on, that's not very good. If they decide to use that, like, I'll be down still. Like, use Xbox's server. I don't care. Like,
dude, I'm not saying this is a good idea, but if they just took the PlayStation Portal shell and just like attached meat to it, like the bones, like the CPU and stuff, and then just called it like the the Portal Pro and it's like $500, like I'm in. Like I don't even care if it's like the same thing, you know?
Yeah, well it's one of those weird things where like the PS Portal, for all intents and purposes, as far as I'm aware, and you can speak on this based on what I'm saying here, is it's a pretty good form factor, right? Like it's literally just the DualSense. So it's like, what more do you need?
The only way you could genuinely complain about the Portal is if you intended for it to be used portably, logistically,
without internet. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, no, I'm saying, like, as far as the form factor goes, like, we grew up in an age where you expected to be able to put your portable consoles in your pocket.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is like,
it's not going to happen.
Yeah, we definitely haven't been doing that with the Switch or the Steam Deck. And I would argue that, like, people kind of didn't really do it that much, even with, like, 3DSs. Like, they did, but, like, a lot of times, like, those 3DSs were pretty meaty. Like, you don't want to put them in a tight pocket where you could, like, bend and break a hinge or something. So...
Yeah. Honestly, I think the words are just like skewed all over the place now. Like people put portable and handheld in like the same basket, and I honestly think like they are, but we kind of need a third word for platforms that are handheld and are portable but aren't exactly ergonomically transportable. If that makes sense. Because like I look at like a Game Boy Color or a Game Boy Advance SP, you know, the foldy screen one, which is badass. I love that one, the backlight one.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's portable. Like that's
truly
that's I can chuck it in my bag and I don't even know it's there. But if I look at my Switch, I'm like, okay, well, I need the Switch if I'm going portable. But what about if I'm like stopping off at a place where there's a TV? Oh, I've got to take the dock as well. You know, if I want that, it's like there's nothing really like. How would you say it? Like outside our mind is not a thing with these new handhelds. It is in your mind even when it's outside, you know. So carry on anyway.
Well, that's the thing is that even if they made a Switch that had like a 2-inch screen, nobody would want it. You know, like that's the thing is we're at this point now where like
I'll go back.
It'd fit in your pocket, but I don't want to play Witcher 3 at 20 frames and 2-inch screen. Like, come on.
Have you ever seen you know, online? Have you ever seen those like videos where people like devolve or degenerate?
Oh yeah, yep.
And they like make The Witcher in PS1 graphics or whatever.
Yeah,
it's so fucking funny, dude.
It's cool. Yeah, it's kind of crazy where we're at because, like, you know, 15 years ago, everyone was like, "Oh, mobile gaming's taking over," and then like mobile gaming became this huge like revenue stream of money, but it still never really pleased the hardcore crowd. And then just last year, Apple finally brought full AAA games natively right to the iPhone. Resident Evil 4, Death Stranding.
Yep.
And the sales came out and like, bro, like no one bought them. Like not like just a couple tens of thousands copies sold. And then now like portable gaming systems are taking off again. So it's very clear, like it seems smart and wise in like 2008 to be like, oh man, the future is we're going to be playing like God of War 3 on our iPhones. But the reality is, no, people don't want to play games like that on their phones. And if people want to play a game like that on the go, they want a dedicated portable console. So it is weird to see like pretty much Sony bow out of the portable market and just give it to Nintendo and just say, okay, Nintendo, you won, you can have it. Yeah. And Microsoft never even try. And then like after the Switch and then the Steam Deck, both Microsoft and Sony are like, holy shit, we got to get in there.
Yeah.
You know? So
it's cool. I'm looking to go off what you said about like the phone stuff. It is wild to me how like an iPhone 15 Pro Max can run
freaking Death Stranding.
Like it looks.
Can you imagine doing a full playthrough of that game just simply on your phone with your fingers? Oh my gosh, dude.
Bro, it kind of makes me want to try that. Like, I don't want to buy like a phone for that, but like I'd love to just go to a demo floor or something, like at a Tokyo Game Show, and be like, this is pretty good. Like, give it it's smooth, bro. It's 60 frames per second. Like,
I want to know what kind of finger inputs it requires for you to like catch yourself when you're tripping on the side of a mountain with just touch controls.
Well, I don't know if it is touch controls because I'm looking at this now and it looks.
You have to have an attachment.
As far as I'm aware, like he has a controller because he's not pressing the screen when he's. Okay.
Well, nobody wants to use the touchscreen, but I thought that they were going to make it so that you could play with the touchscreen. I don't know.
It's just wild, bro. But yeah, I mean it's mind-blowing to me how that's the case. But like you said, if it's not selling, it's just not. People have specific needs on platforms like that. They want quick, chill, games that are something to, I don't know, satisfy just your brain, like clickers and shit, you know, like I say that, but then like Call of Duty Mobile is like pretty big on there, right? Like it's one of the biggest games ever on there. So it's like,
but the people who play Call of Duty Mobile, a lot of times they probably play that and then they also play the console one separate.
Yeah. Same with Minecraft on there's big, but it's like they probably come home and play Minecraft on PC as well and stuff, or Xbox or PlayStation. So yeah, wild, dude, wild.
All right, moving to our next article. This comes from Kotaku. We got a couple excerpts here. Concord director steps down as studio behind historic PlayStation flop waits for Sony's decision. Ooh. It's been 2 weeks since Sony announced it was taking the unprecedented step of unreleasing Concord, and almost as long since the ill-fated sci-fi hero shooter was officially taken offline. In the time since, Kotaku understands that developers at Firewalk Studios have been in limbo about their future as they await Sony's decision about what comes next for Concord and the team. Whatever ends up happening, game director Ryan Ellis will not be at the helm. Formerly at Bungie, where he served as creative director on Destiny 2, Ellis left in 2017 to lead development on what would eventually become Concord. He told staff at Firewalk last week that he would be stepping down from his game director role and move into a support role instead, according to 3 sources familiar with the change. Quote, Ryan deeply believed in that project and bringing players together through the joy in it, said one former developer, who said he felt Ellis had poured a great deal of himself into the game, leading to a ton of stress. Regardless of there being things that could have been done differently throughout development, he's a good human and full of heart. Sources told Kotaku that Ellis was too emotional to speak at points during a post-launch studio-wide meeting after it had become clear that the game was bombing. In a September 3rd PlayStation blog post announcing Concord's removal from store shelves, Ellis wrote, aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we intended. He added that the team would explore options, including those that will better reach our players, and work to determine the best path ahead. But for many within the studio, it's still not clear what will come next, 3 sources told Kotaku. They are pessimistic Concord will return, and some have been asked to explore pitches for something completely different that Firewalk, which is currently around 150 to 170 employees, might work on next. Speculation among staff has also included whether the studio could be used as a co-development studio on one of studio's myriad of other first-party projects currently in production. Others, however, feel like mass layoffs will be the most likely result of Concord's failure, including the possible shutdown of the entire studio, which sources tell Kotaku is one of the more expensive studios in the PlayStation portfolio on a per-head basis. Some developers are updating their resumes and portfolios. A few have already preemptively exited the studio, and others are waiting to see what a potential severance package will look like before deciding what to do next. So we've all talked about Concord to death. We know that it completely bombed. It was pulled off the shelves. It was refunded. And it's still not 100% clear whether Sony plans to do anything with the game or if they're planning to just have it be done for good. We know now that Ryan Ellis has stepped down as being the director, and it appears as if the studio has been given really no direction on what they should be working on, if they'll be let go, what the plans are. And I think one of the most interesting things that stood out to me at the end is where it says, sources tell Kotaku, it is one of the most expensive studios in PlayStation's portfolio on a per head basis.
Oh my God.
I would think that obviously what I want would be for them to either give this team a new smaller game to work on to generate profits and make something for the studio that works, or to have them integrate into other studios because they're obviously very professional people who have worked on big games before. That would be my preference. Yep. But if you're reading the tea leaves here and you see that Concord's a super expensive game that was in development forever and it bombed immediately, it made $0, lost a ton of money. There's, just shy of 200 employees at the studio, and they are one of the most expensive PlayStation studios. It seems like they would close the studio, because you're saying that this is probably more expensive than Sucker Punch, probably more expensive than maybe like Guerrilla. I wouldn't say it's as expensive as Santa Monica or Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
But like to be up in the Ghost of Tsushima Horizon franchise levels of money spent,
yep,
and to have literally financially nothing to show for it, it's crazy that there's been no decision made at this point. What do you think about this, Joe?
Well, yeah, well, you can thank Jim Ryan for that. Genuinely. He bought into this studio massively, acquired it, brought everyone in, which is fair enough. But it seemed like he was supplying them on a wing and a prayer. And it was like, yeah, we'll pay like a shit ton of money for a studio that literally hasn't proven anything that they can do anything within. And, you know, I'm not going to be the one to be like, yeah, it's all on Concord now or anything and retroactively say that, because I'm one of the people that genuinely thinks like, you know, Firewalk are, you know, a really talented development studio, clearly by what they made. It's just that it didn't hit. Like I've said, I'm not going to go back on that and change my opinion. But it's, I just think it's wild, dude. I think to put this much money into a studio that doesn't really have that many fucking people in and pay that much per head, because obviously a lot of them are industry veterans, seemingly so you're paying for that credibility. I think it is wild. I think it's wild that, you know, Herman Hulst has to, you know, take on all this now that he is president of Sony Studios, and he has to basically like figure this out. It's also wild to me because there's a common misconception when it comes to gaming that like the more gaming CEOs are like bad at business, and the more business CEOs that don't game are better at the business side of the gaming. You know, you look at like the Phil Spencer versus the Jim Ryan. You know, like Phil Spencer has more in common with a Herman Hulst or a Sean Layden, who is now at Tencent and stuff, than he does with a Jim Ryan. But ultimately, like, that's not always the case. You know, just because Jim Ryan doesn't game, and just because Jim Ryan is all numbers and business, you know, stuff.
I actually think Jim Ryan's done better than Phil, but continue.
Well, I think so, but you're also comparing. Sorry to Phil here, but you're comparing like pretty much dog shit to
damn, dude.
Like, you can do better than me,
Jim,
way more. But
Jim got the PS5 consoles out in the middle of a pandemic.
Yes. Yeah.
He approved things like Astrobot and second-party deals like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Stellar Blade. Like,
he also did numbers for PlayStation in Europe under Sean Layden as well.
Yeah,
you got to give him that credit.
That's what I hate. Is like I feel like a lot. Well, actually, I don't want to say I hate it because like I'm not a big Jim Ryan stan. I'm not trying to stick up for the guy, but it's like people see live service and they picture his face.
Yes, they do.
But it's like he was also in charge of the company during the PS5's launch and Astrobot being approved and all these great second party deals. Like Spider-Man 2 came out under him. I mean, God of War Ragnarok came out under him. So
you are,
give the guy some credit, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll never strip him completely of credit, 100%. But it's
obviously his live service push was very poorly.
It was rather, I think it was very short-sighted in many ways, and I don't think it was sustainable. And I also, like I said, like just to finish my point, I think ultimately, like, it's not always clear. Just because someone is gaming doesn't mean, you know, they know everything about how to do the business side, or they don't know how to do the business side of things, and vice versa. It's a very, very nuanced discussion to have when it comes to who is running your company, and it's always difficult. But I just think this sucks. You know, like hearing about, you know, Ryan Ellis like being too emotional to speak, you know, during a post-launch studio-wide meeting after it had been clear that the game was bombing. It's like, dude, like that's so sad, because I don't know if I brought it up on the last episode, or I can't remember when I think I brought it up, but I recently watched you know, the Raising Kratos documentary.
Yep, I've watched it.
Yeah, and apologies to the viewers or listeners that have heard me speak about this previously if I have, but I can't remember. And it's literally like Corey near the end of the documentary says like, yeah, like I'm paraphrasing here, but he says like, obviously we always want it to come out great, like, you know, to amazing reception, because we spend like 9 years on this game. We spend like serious portions of our lives on this, and we really dedicate so much to it, which they always do, these developers. But then like the bad thing is if like it comes out and people hate it, but the worst thing is if it comes out and it's crickets, because it's so upsetting. And he says, again, paraphrasing, but that's something along those lines. And there's a video of him at the end where he pulls on Metacritic and he sees the fucking like 90s, you know, ratings for God of War 2018, and he starts crying. He starts breaking down. And the exact antithesis has happened here with Ryan Ellis. It's like the reviews weren't good, the player numbers weren't even there to support the game to get it to a point where it could have been an amazing live service game months down the line. And everyone, ultimately, like everyone has not benefited from this. Like Sony's failed from it. Firewalk has failed from it. Concord has not been good in the hands of gamers, so gamers have not potentially found their new favorite game. And it just, this is what I'm saying, like, people that sit here and laugh about this shit on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and they take the piss, like, you got to understand, like, you are like, not the reason, but you are like closing your mind to it and not opening yourselves up and potentially giving it a chance. Is your own, all you're doing is, at the most, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because this could have been potentially a game you really liked, especially if you didn't play it, which I bet you didn't, because there was barely any players. Yeah. And yeah, it sucks. It really sucks, and it's just sad because, like, you see, you read these quotes and stuff, and it's like that's the reality of AAA development right now. Not necessarily indie games, necessarily if they get, if they get a good foundation under them. Not necessarily double A's, but AAA, dude, it's volatile right now, and I mean, I don't see a future for this studio. Like, even though, like, they haven't made a official decision on this right now, like, do they give them a small budget title to work on for the future? But, like, obviously Ryan Ellis is definitely not going to be director. Did it say he's leaving the studio, or it says he's still
with the studio? He's just not director. Yeah.
Right, which is still, good. Like, this is the thing. It's Ryan. Like, this guy did Destiny 2. And I like Destiny 2. Like, I was one of those that didn't like Destiny 1. He was creative
director, Destiny 2.
Yeah, and that is a really good game. Like, at launch, that game was good. Like, that game was really good. Like, as someone who didn't really rate Destiny 1 at launch, he did really well to make that second one an improvement over the first. For me personally, anyway, as a casual Destiny
I loved Destiny 2 at launch. Yeah. Loved it.
I thought the campaign was good. Like, I thought it was beautiful. I did too. I loved it. Lots of content. Yeah. So this guy knows what he's doing. It's just that it just didn't hit. It just didn't hit, and it's a shame that, like, he's feeling this. Everyone in the studio are feeling this wave. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go over all the same talking points. We know many reasons why the game didn't succeed, but I think amidst all those reasons, somehow Concord just pissed off the gaming community at large. Maybe a little bit fairly at some places, but mostly not fairly, I think. I mean, I think Concord just became the literal poster child for being pissed at Sony for not having first party, single player narrative ready or announced, being pissed at Sony for going heavy into live service, being sick of more live service hero shooter stuff, being pissed at the price, just being, I mean, other than Astrobot, this was it for the year. So I think it just became the punching bag to the point. And I think it became the punching bag for reasons that weren't it. And then people who didn't even pay attention to Concord or know what Concord was just saw people punching this thing in the corner, and then they walk up and they go, "What is this?" And they go, "Hey, look, it's Concord. We're beating the shit out of it. You want to help us?" Like, "Oh, sure." And before you know it, there's just legions of people beating the shit out of Concord to the point where it's a fact now at this point with player numbers. There was 10, 20, 100 times as many people talking about this game and shitting on it than there were playing it.
Yeah. It reminds me, do you remember when the Call of Duty Infinite Warfare trailer came out and it became like one of the most disliked YouTube trailers?
Wasn't that because it was futuristic or?
Yeah, but like it was wild because, like, that was the same thing. It's like a bandwagon mentality where, like, no one's actually played this game yet. Yeah. And you're bagging on it. And when it came out, it was a pretty successful Call of Duty. And
a lot of people love that one.
Here's the thing. Retrospectively, people say the multiplaire is shit. But the campaign was
really good.
Apparently, I mean, I haven't played it, so don't just. No,
I remember back when I used to talk to Alex Haruspis on my other podcast for Halo. He his favorite Call of Duty campaign and one of his favorite first-person shooter campaigns was Infinite Warfare. Yeah.
So. There you go. And so it's wild because, like, sometimes the initial hate wave for games in general isn't all it's cracked up to be. And normally a game can survive the hate wave a little bit, right? Like obviously a Call of Duty can. Like, a Call of Duty is always going to survive it. But sometimes the hate wave and the lack of interest, more specifically with Concord, the lack of interest, just kills it. Like, just dead in the water. And that is such a shame. So
it's unfortunate. We'll be interested to see when an announcement comes forward from Sony on what's going on with Firewalk. So we wish them the best. Over to our last news topic of the day. We're going to touch on 3 just kind of bottom line verdicts on latest previews for Dragon Age: The Veilguard. A lot of industry people got to go and play 7 hours of the game, and I have to say, everything I've seen in passing and heard is holy shit, this game is really good. And I mean, kind of funny we're saying, like, they think this might be the game of the year based on what they've played. Yeah, like it's like really good. Like what I'm hearing is like this isn't just like, oh, the best Dragon Age. It's like this is a standout AAA RPG of the year. So let's see what a couple places have said about it here. So this comes from IGN. As a longtime fan, the Veilguard felt like a homecoming of sorts. Just as much as seeing familiar faces in Solus and Varric, I was overjoyed to be back in the world of Thedas itself. Moving us north allows for that sense of discovery I got in Inquisition, and if I'd encourage anything, it's to really look at your surroundings. Not only are small environmental puzzles to untangle along with small and effective moments of visual storytelling, but the horizon is full of breathtaking scenery that drives home the scale of these locations I've personally always wondered about. One new locale, for instance, is a gorgeous underwater prison called Ossuary. I won't spoil what you're there to do, but the design alone makes it one of the most memorable moments I've had in any Dragon Age game. Even after hours of gameplay, I still felt like I could have played for many hours more. I'm optimistic about the Veilguard and excited for it in a way I haven't quite felt about another game in quite some time. If you'd like to see even more of the game, check out our exclusive IGN first coverage. Then we'll go over to VG247. This one's a tad longer. Crucially, this is the sort of RPG system that has enough depth that you should be able to crack the game open like an egg. You don't have to do that, of course, but for the min-maxers among you, this certainly appears to be the sort of game you'll be able to carefully build game-breaking setups in between the skill trees and the gear that's on offer. It's the sort of game where a single new piece of armor you might find have some bonus that'll send you to craft an entirely new build designed to maximize its bonus. The Veilguard is built for this too, making respecking and refunding skill points easy and unlimited, encouraging wild experimentation. So there is meat on the bone. Don't let trailers that focus on quippy, sexy characters that you'll want to romance and helm-splitting combat fool you. The style is there, yes, but so too is the substance. When I call that stuff style, I too want to be clear. It's not all surface. The characters, the world, the narrative, they're all substantive too. There's bravery in taking the series in new places on show for one. There's some gentle shaving off of some of the sharper edges, sometimes in the form of lovely quality of life changes like the in-game map making it absolutely clear where a companion has something new to say, but other times in slightly more controversial streamlining like conversation options, now basically always boiling down to nice, sarcastic, or tough options. These things that can't be judged in a day's hands-on, of course. The developer says it's proud to have structured the game around companions this time. They call them load-bearing pillars of the entire experience. The logic, it's explained, is that BioWare is really good at doing companions, so why not structure the whole game specifically around them? It makes sense. It can't be judged on just a slice of the game, but for what it's worth, after a day with them, I did begin to feel like this might be the best Dragon Age ensemble yet. The story had me intrigued too. The star of the show remains how the game plays, though. Combat feels good. The rogue is ridiculous. The RPG systems have surprising depth. The entire game is giving more than I expected. In fact, the game's biggest sin so far is simply that jump and the interact button are one and the same. I hate when that happens. And it's a pet peeve of mine, but I can forgive that, especially if the rest of the experience lives up to the first extended hands-on. Roll on to October. And our last brief verdict from PC Gamer. At the end of our play session, BioWare told us that everything we'd played was just from Act 1 of the Veilguard. I'd been spirited through recruitment missions and boss fights and several genuinely gorgeous missions that didn't allow me to miss Dragon Age Inquisition's open world design at all. It made me a believer out of me with its combat and reassured me that the quieter moments with my party members between all the action would be worth waiting for. I'll continue to nitpick, and some bits I'm just never going to come around on, but that comes with the fan territory. From what I've seen so far, there's a good chance that the Veilguard will do the series proud. So just adding a little bit of anecdotal stuff I've heard from when I listened to Kind of Funny the other day. Basically, they said that the gameplay is phenomenal. It feels the most comparable they can compare it to is God of War 2018 for the gameplay, which is insane for Dragon Age.
Weird. Yeah.
The world is not open world at all. They wouldn't even say it was really like open zone. It was more just like large linear areas with very crafted content, where if anyone's played Inquisition, you know that was a very large world full of bloated checklisty content. So it seems they have moved away from that. I've heard the dialogue, the writing's great. Everyone at Kind of Funny was just bursting with excitement, couldn't wait to get back to it, and saying that they think this could be the game of the year. So for me, I have played all the Dragon Age games. I remember when Inquisition was coming out, it looked cool, so I went and played Origins. which had an amazing world and characters and story, but I hated the gameplay. It went on to Dragon Age 2. It had a good world and characters as well. Gameplay was a little bit better, but it was just kind of a not a complete experience. God Inquisition, when it came out, had a good time, but was very put off by all of the checklisty kind of MMO-like side quest stuff. And now it's been 10 years, and I just really don't know what to think of Dragon Age. And of course, we talked about it before. The first trailer for this game looked like ass cheeks. It looked like a MOBA hero shooter for mobile phones, but that ended up being just a bad trailer. We saw more gameplay. Everything we've heard about this game has been all the right things for months. Seems like this game is going to be really good. Seems like this could easily, like right now, Inquisition's my favorite Dragon Age. This could easily be it. I'm excited to have like the real-time God of War kind of gameplay. I'm excited for a big fantasy RPG like this. End of October, provided something catastrophic doesn't happen. This is a day one buy for me. I'm going to be all in on this game. I think it's going to review really well. I think it's going to be a Game of the Year nominee based on what we're hearing. So yeah, I'm in already. I'm going to buy it. I don't think you're as convinced yet, Joe. What do you think of these previews, and what would it take for you to buy it this year? Is there anything that would get you to buy it this year?
I mean, it's probably the most positive preview for a AAA game this year, right? I would say it's the most...
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing I want to mention too, is that kind of funny was saying that the build they were playing now was so polished. It was more polished than some games that release. So
okay, yeah. That is good, because normally you get some right jankiness in preview builds, but yeah. I don't know if I'm excited to play it and buy it day one, just because. So it looks really good. Like the gameplay looks good. I've just been looking at the combat in that IGN article. The characters look great and everything. It's just that there's something about Dragon Age that's never really grabbed me. I think it might be the color palette. I think it might be I don't know. It always, this sounds controversial, but Dragon Age to me always feels like, even in its most polished state, it feels like it's an outdated formula with a layer of polish over the top of it. And like that goes into its like style of narrative for me personally, the characters and stuff. It just all feels a bit like too high fantasy, too run of the mill, and it's trying to punch way above its weight and doesn't need to. And Wes is gonna like hate me for saying that, and he's gonna like rip into my opinions there because I'm like naive as fuck on Dragon Age, because I've only played I think I played like a little bit of 1 from what I remember, and I didn't complete it. I've never played 2, just because I heard it was crap, and then Dragon Age Inquisition, I think I beat it, but I can't fucking remember because it was like so bloated with the hinterlands crap and stuff, and I was just like, I can't do this.
It's crazy how good 2 is, like, because everyone says 2 is garbage. I think it's just 2 was disappointing.
Okay.
But 2 is like a pretty solid RPG, like great characters and story. So
yeah, I just struggle with it. I just struggle with that series. And maybe like it's because I don't know whether it's like The Witcher has maybe struggled with it. Like I've always been like more into like a darker themed fantasy. Because like The Witcher technically, like when it comes to its themes and its tropes and stuff, is high fantasy. It's just that it has like a macabre, like very nihilistic take on it. And like most fantasy, even like Lord of the Rings, isn't that way inclined. It's quite tame. And I often don't. I like a little bit of Blade. Let me put it this way: I like a little bit of Blade Runner sci-fi in my fantasy, if that makes sense. Like there's a little bit of Cyberpunk 2077 in The Witcher 3.
Well, but knowing your taste, like Dragon Age doesn't have really any of it.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of like very colorful people wandering around and fighting other colorful monsters, and I just don't click with it a lot of the time, and I'm like, what is going on half the time? So I'm not saying like the games are bad objectively at all. It's just that for me personally, I struggle with them. But I will say that looking at the gameplay, it looks fucking fire. I think they've done a good job in taking kind of the essence of Dragon Age, in like the companion side of it, they were saying in that article, and like combining it with a more successful form of like combat that we've seen in like a God of War and stuff. And I think that's a good way of revitalizing the series, because I feel like BioWare have been in a bit of a weird predicament for the past couple of years, ever since like Mass Effect 3, I would say personally, like all that way back. Like Mass Effect 3 ended with a little bit of a weird one. Obviously they fixed the ending and made it more bearable. And then what came out after that? Was it Dragon Age Inquisition that came out after that, or am I wrong?
No, it was Dragon Age Inquisition won Game of the Year. People loved it. Then it was Andromeda, which people didn't like, and then it was Anthem, which people hated.
Yeah, so Inquisition came out after that, and like for me, that was still kind of muddy, but it won Game of the Year, admittedly, in my opinion, in a very weak year. Which if this is another thing, like, is this year if Shadow of the Erdtree isn't on Game of the Year, is this year a weak one comparatively? Would Dragon Age: The Veilguard win this Game of the Year?
I'm glad you said this, Joe, because I thought it was too controversial to say. Right. Because in some sense, I don't find this year weak, but in another sense, I'm like, the competition isn't strong enough that I couldn't see Dragon Age winning again. Because really, off the top of my head, I only think there's only two real big competitors for Dragon Age: The Veilguard.
Sure.
Astrobot and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Astrobot doesn't have the chops you would expect. It's not the type of game you would expect to win Game of the Year. It's smaller. People don't look at it as, whether it's fair or not, people don't look at it as like your artistic auteur type of thing. They're like, oh, it's a platformer.
Yep.
So I think like Astrobot doesn't have the greatest chance by being a great game. Then it comes down to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it's like, for someone like me who adores Final Fantasy VII, I'm like, okay, that's going to end up being what, 8, 9, 10 months old at that point. Everyone's come down from the honeymoon phase. The hype is gone.
Yeah. There's a level of like recency bias. Sorry to interrupt, but there's like, a level of
Dragon Age will have just come out.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, this is the new hot shit. This is definitely it's the same thing with Space Marine. It's like, I've noticed this with Space Marine 2 recently. It's like, this game got like 8s, 9s out of 10s. But now I'm starting to see a lot of people in comment sections, as they weren't before, saying, if this wasn't Space Marine, it's not that good. It's just World War Z once again, because it's the same developers, right? It's like, so that recency bias, that honeymoon phase is wearing off. And it's the same thing, like sometimes, and it's hard, it's pretty much impossible to prove, but sometimes that can help in these award ceremonies, the new hotness. So carry on anyway.
Yeah, I think with it being extremely fresh, I mean, we'll be watching the Game Awards roughly a month-ish after this releases, and since it's a giant RPG, people will either have just completed it or still be playing it. So this will be very recent. And Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like, on one hand, Final Fantasy is a massive franchise with a ton of appeal, but I'm also like, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a sequel remake to an old game exclusive to PS5. I think this big fantasy RPG with like sexiness and romance being fresh on your mind for all platforms. And if it's really this polished and this good, like, and also we just had Baldur's Gate 3 sweep last year. This is kind of like, obviously they're not the same game, but another fantasy sexy game.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm glad you said it, because I do think, like, I don't think this is a weak year, but at the same time, like, this is the year for Dragon Age to win, kind of, again,
It's almost like they keep bringing it out. Like, it's like they keep hitting that right year to win the accolades. And it's hard to say, because I never want to sit here and, like, I hate when people are reductive. Like, when they bring out outside context just to, like, justify why this game won. Like, they do it with God of War all the time. It's like God of War won, 2018 Game of the Year because it's a Sony game and it's Oscar bait and stuff. And it's like, no, like, if you actually look at like God of War and like what it meant to the industry at the time for Sony and the rest, it was pretty fucking big. Like, Red Dead 2 was big, but it was kind of expected that was going to be big. And like, it was kind of like the underdog story in many ways. And I never want to do that with something like Dragon Age, because then it wouldn't be fair. And I genuinely think if it does win, it deserves to win. And I think even if it was last year, Dragon Age: The Veilguard, if it comes out and it's really good and it's like in track with the previews that's come out, I think that it should have been nominated for Game of the Year, right? Like, it should have been up there.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's always something that you consider when it comes to these weak years. And it'd be interesting to see Dragon Age come out in a year that's stacked full of maybe another fantasy RPG.
Yeah.
Maybe The Witcher 4 or whatever. When when that next one comes out, maybe another Dragon Age comes out and see if it can, keep up, keep in the fight a little bit. And I think that would be really cool. But I guess ultimately, it's not. I don't know. It's weird, because I think for me to truly love Dragon Age, and it sounds like it's a bit too thorough for me to do this just for the sake of playing the Veilguard or whatever, but I feel like to truly get into that series, which is a monumental task because of how big these games are now and how many there are now, there's 4 of them. I think that it would do me service to go back and start with the first one and see if I really enjoy it, because I like Mass Effect. Like, this is the thing, I adore Mass Effect. I love Mass Effect 2. It's on my top 50 games of all time. Mass Effect 1 is just outside my top 50 games of all time. Mass Effect 3 is a bit further down than that, maybe like in the top 100 rather than top 75. But ultimately, like, I'm one of those where like I kind of like I have to kind of be thorough with a lot of games to get into a universe like of this scale.
I feel like this is the franchise to just start with the Veilguard, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I tried that again, but the thing is like I played Dragon Age 1 when I was young, and I enjoyed it, but I never finished it. I didn't play Dragon Age 2, like I said, and I played Inquisition, and it never hit. And I know this is different to Inquisition, like clearly, like it's obviously being a completely different game. It's leaning more into hack and slash, etc., etc. But maybe I'll have the same problem. I'm worried I'll have the same problem where I buy it and I'm like, it's okay, but I'm not clear. It's like kind of, I worry, this is the best way to put it. I talk about Horizon a lot. I worry that even though I can recognize it's a great game, objectively, I can't click with the combat and the art style and the feel of it and the narrative. That's what I'm worried about. So.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely like don't pick it up if you're not sure. I mean, the thing is, like Dragon Age, I've always said to me, it is the most inconsistent AAA franchise in the industry. The first game is it's a CRPG, like Baldur's Gate. Then Dragon Age 2 is this confined. The whole game takes place in one city, and it's like more action oriented, where you just kind of like hack and slash more. Mm-hmm. And then you get to Dragon Age Inquisition, and it kind of takes the hack and slash of 2 and the CRPG elements of 1 and combine them together to make this kind of hybrid. And then they put it in this open world setting, but it's mostly designed like an MMO where it's just like run around collecting 5 of these, 10 of those, kill 3 of these, kill 4 of them. And so it's like, first game's its own thing, second game's its own thing, third game's like a quasi thing of a bunch of elements together. And then here we go with Dragon Age the Veilguard, and it's like, okay, it's got God of War 2018 gameplay. You don't control your companions anymore. It's not a CRPG in any way. I mean, I think it's just like every game is just the identity is so different. And it's, I don't know, I think this would be a good place to start. But back to my question then, Joe, like, so and there's no wrong answer. Let's say we're 2 days from launch. Mm-hmm. And this is a 94 on Metacritic. And people are like, verdicts are at the end of reviews are saying like, the question just might be, is the Veilguard one of the greatest RPGs ever made? Is that kind of hype where you're like, yep, I'm pre-ordering it? Or are you still like, I'll wait and see? I don't know. No wrong answer.
Because I see the gameplay of it and I'm like, that looks fucking fire. The gameplay, just if I took the gameplay as a vertical slice and I just put that in its own pocket outside of anything else in the game, I think this is the most exciting I've been for Dragon Age ever because it looks. I mean, it's more in line with what I love, right? Like God of War and shit, and hack and slash games. Like I love hack and slash, like Ninja Gaiden and shit. And so like this is very similar, and it takes notes from those games or God of War at least. And it's like that's cool. I like that, but I don't know if reviews are going to sway me because seeing these previews, I think it's already going to go that way, and I'm already committed to that being the case. Mm-hmm. And in many ways, I don't necessarily have to wait for reviews to think if a game is good. Like a preview, a lot of the time, multiplayer is kind of up in the air, but previews are kind of like, for single player games, they're pretty consolidated in what they mean and what is going to be the game's final product. You're so close to the game going gold at this point. And like you said, kind of funny, you said that the actual previews that they've had of very, very good quality, like better than some release games. That to me is like, that's mind-blowing shit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think at this point, I think it's
also, Joe, I should mention, you can buy it directly from Steam. You do not have to ever touch EA Play. It launches from Steam, and it's only $60.
It's only $60?
On Steam. I don't know if that's the case for console.
Okay. Well, that's good because like this whole idea of like DRM through 2 fucking platforms is annoying as shit.
But like, $60, and they're like, they specified you do not have to touch EA Play ever. So I'm like, they want to get people in on this game,
I think, here's the thing. I think I might not pick it up, but the way I look at Dragon Age, the Veilguard, is that I really hope this game does well because I think BioWare deserves a second chance after Andromeda and especially after Anthem. And they've already teased Mass Effect. So if this game didn't do well, which I'm sure, touch wood, that this game, if this game does well, and if it does well, I think that ultimately, like, they need it because if this doesn't do well, what the fuck is going to be the future of this studio because
well, if this game bombed, they're done. And
that's what I'm saying.
Maybe,
and they've
maybe
already
this is
released
all,
that teaser, that teaser for the next Mass Effect. It's like
maybe this is all in my head, but like I think the entire rollout of Dragon Age, the way they've unveiled it, the way they've talked about it, the previews, the fact that it's this polished, I think this was a Hail Mary kind of. This is it. This is the final try. This 3 strikes, you're out if the Veilguard doesn't land. This has to get good scores and good sales, and then they can make another game. If it doesn't do that, EA will close the studio. Like, if this is a bad game, because I think everyone would agree, for the most part, Anthem was a bad game. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think Andromeda was a bad game. I thought Andromeda was good, just not great. But, it can't just be that again. And I think it, everyone thinks that EA is like the most evil company ever. But like, if BioWare hasn't put out a game that anyone universally loved in over 10 years, that's when people can go, okay, I get it. That's why you closed the studio. Like, if this came out and was getting like a 65 on Metacritic and people were like,
it might be over the sales were bad.
Yeah. People were like, oh, the game falls apart in the second act and this happens and that happens. And like, then it's like, okay, they're probably done. So I think they're really putting it all in and saying, here, check out our game. We have put our hearts and souls into it. This is as good as we say it is. We want the studio to go on. So,
and in that case, like, I really want them to do successful. To be successful with this. I want people to go out and support it if it's good and if it's what they want. Put your money where your mouth is, because we hear about game closures all the time, game studio closures all the time. We hear about, games failing. We've just had Concord fail. It's kind of, we're at a point now with the AAA industry where it's kind of like sink or swim. And a lot of the time, if you want your games to succeed, it's literally, you have to pay for them. You have to, support them monetarily. This shit doesn't come from fucking money, doesn't grow on trees for these studios, for these publishers. And you have to vote with your wallet in the sense that if you want more of this shit for Dragon Age, / similar games, within the Mass Effect trilogy series, from BioWare, you got to support it. You got to tell EA that this is the kind of shit you want, because if you let it die, there's no chance it's going to ever continue, and you'll never get that next Mass Effect game. This is their third strike, right? Like, this is it. So I just hope it's good, and maybe down the line I'll pick it up, like once more gameplay comes out, sometimes all it takes for me is to sit and watch. Like, I'll be playing a game and I'll put like a little playthrough on that I'm watching on the side, like some gameplay from a reviewer or whatever, and I'll just peek over and I'll be like, you know what, that looks good. I never saw that before in the previews or the reviews, and that looks good. I'm gonna give that a go. That's sometimes all it takes. Like, I might be playing Astrobot or whatever, and just a little peek over. I'll get that next. I mean, my next game's a DRDR, Dead Rising Deluxe. Is it remaster? What do they call it?
Remaster.
Yeah, weird namesake.
Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, DRDR.
DRDR. And that's just come from me seeing like people like Sphere Hunter and stuff reviewing it.
Have you bought it yet?
No, I will do. Soon. Okay. Once I beat Astrobot, it's going to be digital. So cool. Support it. Looks good. Hope it's good.
Sweet. I'm looking forward to it. I would say at this point in the year, it's what I'm looking forward to most. It's right. Veilguard. I don't really have like a big game that's coming out. Obviously, DRDR has just come out, but that's kind of like just something I'm picking up to enjoy. But like any game, but just like kind of a quaint little game in many ways, like from my childhood. But I guess like if Delta gets announced for later on in the year, which I don't think it will, like I think that's probably going to be my big game for the end of the year, but I doubt it. So okay, let's move on to my special topic of the week. Something that Joe and I kind of touched on a little bit earlier today. Like, and I want you guys listening to think of this, like, what are your gaming quirks, or what is one big gaming quirk you have? And when I say quirk, I kind of talked about this with Joe earlier, like what I don't mean is necessarily preferences. Like, I prefer to play games that are single player narrative driven. I don't think it's a quirk really that I do that. It's just a preference. But a quirk would be like something that kind of doesn't really make much sense, but you are that way. And how this kind of topic came to mind was that it's me and indie games. I have no interest in indie games. I don't have interest in when they're revealed. I don't have interest in playing them. I don't really want to play them. I don't get excited about them. I just kind of, if I hear indie, my brain kind of just shuts off. And like, I can see, well, not only can I see it, I've heard it before. It's like, bro, what do you got against indie games? You know, like some of the best games I've played are indie games. Like,
leave indie alone.
Yeah, these are games that sometimes don't have major corporations behind them, like Scheming and Greedy. You know, these are games that tell like really personal stories. I don't necessarily know fully what it is. I just know that I don't want to play them and I don't like them. And it's like, you know, Bryan, have you played any? And I listed like 10 or so to Joe that I've played / beaten, you know, the Stanley Parable, Limbo, you know, Super Meat Boy, all kinds of Braid, all kinds of ones that I've played or beaten. And they've either been, some of them I've enjoyed and had a good time with, but just maybe it's the way I've been raised. Maybe it's just the way I've gamed my whole life, but like they're always on a lower tier to me to where I just don't take them as seriously and I just don't care about them. Like I beat Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, and I thought it was a great story and a great game. But I just don't care about it. And I just like, when I think about my favorite games of all time, I never incorporate indie games. I never think about indie games. I'm pretty much AAA focused. And with the amount of limited time I have in my life, I can't keep up with just the AAA games I want to play. So I'm always like, well, if I'm going to spend time on a game, I'm going to spend it on AAA specifically. So that's kind of my quirk, is like, I just don't care about indie games. Just don't want to play them. And like, I will play a AA game. Yeah. I mean, I think like the first Hellblade was like a AA game.
I would say so.
And I really enjoyed it. I think I played a AA game earlier this year that's not coming to my mind, that I really enjoyed. I don't know if someone would call Stellar Blade. Would somebody call Stellar Blade AA? Maybe not.
I don't know. Do we know the budget of that? Like,
no, that's probably low AAA.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't think
it
looks low AAA.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Astrobot, which is technically might be more AA budget, but of course it looks AAA because of the Sony.
It's hard, right? Because I feel like ever since the 7th generation, AA is kind of blended into.
I mean, AA is probably more expensive than early 360 gen AAA.
Yeah, potentially.
You know, so where you truly have to go to your indie that's like a few million, and then you just go right up to AA. You're talking 100 million, maybe, or maybe 50 to 80 million, and then you get past 100 million. It's just totally AAA. But yeah, so my quirk is indie games. Like, I don't really want to be convinced to play indie games. I don't really want to have my mind change. I don't really need a pep talk. I just don't really want to engage with them. I just don't. I mean, I'm not a fan of 2D stuff, but like in general, even AAA 2D stuff, I'm just not a 2D gamer or side-scrolling gamer. But at the same time, I played the Stanley Parable. That's 3D. I've played Proteus, the first-person shooter, and I just don't care for them. So I don't really. That's kind of the core central point to saying, like, what is your gaming quirk is, you know, that it has to on some level not make sense or kind of not be fair. So that's mine.
Yeah.
Joe, what's yours?
Well, I've said this in the past, and I alluded to it previously, like Bryan said, I can't really do portable gaming. Like I struggle with it, and it's quite annoying, to be honest, because I feel like by design, if I don't like portable gaming, I kind of don't like Nintendo games, right? Like it kind of goes hand in hand.
At this point,
especially, because even if I play...
I never asked you, do you enjoy playing your Switch docked to the television with a Pro controller?
I really do. This is the thing with Nintendo that's really debilitating to me as a gamer, because like I adore their games from an objective standpoint. I think everything they make, for the most part, especially on a AAA level, is prestige level design every time. Yeah. Like, they are probably the most consistent developers out there when it comes from a platform. You know, like Sony's pretty fucking consistent. Xbox is down the bottom, let's be honest. And then like Nintendo, like, and then we were talking about this on the PlayStation podcast. Nintendo's at the top. They're above PlayStation when it comes to their consistency of AAA games, right? Like, they always hit most of the time, like 95% of the time, 98% of the time with like Zelda. They pretty much always hit with Mario, let's be honest. Like, they're just good. And this is the thing, like, even though they're so fucking good objectively to me, like, I just struggle with their characters, their world, them like.
So is your quirk Nintendo or portable?
No, because that's what I'm about to get on. Because like the portable side of it is like, I mean, it can be both technically. My quirk is that like, but the thing is, I kind of have a reason for the Nintendo thing. I don't really have a reason for the portable. So if you combine the Nintendo with the portable problem, I have like two things there that go against Nintendo as a platform that I wish I could get over, but I can't. And I just don't do portable gaming. The only ones I've ever kind of pushed forward on is like a PS Vita or a PSP, but even them I struggle with, and a lot of those games I preferred to play them on a PC, if that makes sense, unofficially. I own the games allegedly. Yeah. And like I've enjoyed them more sitting here with a controller in hand and with my headphones in, not laid on a sofa, not laid on a bed, and I prefer it sitting here. And for whatever reason, like a quirk, no rationale behind the reason why, I cannot give you a reason why that is. I enjoy playing them in the moment, but I think there's something about like me coming back, finding the time maybe to come back to it. I struggle with. I just can't. The platform side of it, the ergonomic side of it, just doesn't hook me.
Okay, let me ask you this. Yeah. Okay, so like your next game you're going to play is Dead Rising Remaster.
After Astrobot, yeah.
After you finish Astrobot. Okay, let's just go with Astrobot, actually, since you're still playing Astrobot.
Okay.
Let's say you're going on a plane tomorrow for a 10-hour plane ride. And for some reason, you can bring a PlayStation portal on the plane, and you can play Astrobot. Would you spend a lot of that time in the plane playing Astrobot and having a good time? Or would you simply because it's portable kind of be like, I could just rest or listen to a podcast?
So here's the thing. When I went to America, before I came to visit you, I was on the plane and I had the Nintendo Switch and I was playing Tears of the Kingdom. And I think that's the last time I played it, actually.
I think it is.
And I enjoyed it. I really liked it. But I spent more time doing laptop stuff, working on... Actually, I tell you what, I worked on a lot of old Critical Frames before we rebooted it into a PlayStation podcast.
The original Critical Frames.
I was drawing up logos and sketching things and stuff, and I think I would rather do that, even if I had an Astrobot, with a PS Portal 2
just because you don't want to play it in that environment.
I would probably play it for an hour, but I'd probably not play it. If I'm on a long flight, I'm probably not going to play it for as long as if I was sat here. And I don't know why it is. It annoys me because there's some amazing fucking video games on portable platforms.
Yeah.
And I just struggle. But again, at the same time, I allegedly play them on PC in my own means, so I can figure it out.
I wonder if your mom was like, for Christmas, like, hey, sweetie, I got you a Steam Deck. Like, I wonder if you would find yourself using it a lot because it's now before you, or if it would just slowly become like, well, I kind of hate having to play portably.
I honestly think it would probably even fall by the wayside more than a Switch because I have a PC that can do what a Steam Deck does, but better. So
what's a Switch game you've beaten?
Mario Odyssey.
Okay, when you played that, did you beat it on the dock onto your TV?
Yeah, pretty much all the games I played was on the dock. Breath of the Wild. I played Breath of the Wild on the Switch. That was very fun. I must have put 100 hours into that game.
You did it portably?
No, dock.
Oh, okay.
I played some of it portably, but most of it on the dock. Like I would say 90% of it on the dock.
Yeah.
But that was when my Switch was fresh. You see, those two games I got with a secondhand Switch, and I was like, yeah, this is it. Like this is really good. Again, the new shiny wears off, the novelty wears off, honeymoon phase disappears, and I'm back to playing PlayStation and PC. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's annoying. I can't do it.
I think every gamer has a quirk. I mean, like I'm trying to think of like my friend Josh's. Like, tell me if you think this is a quirk or a preference, because I was thinking the quirk I think of for Josh is like if Josh is playing like an RPG and he's like 60 hours in,
sure,
and he makes a decision he didn't mean to make, and then there's no save to go back, he might just quit playing it, and until years later he'll start a new account. Yeah. To me, that's a quirk, but maybe someone could say like, "Oh, I understand." But like he'll be like I'm pretty sure in Baldur's Gate 3, he got dozens and dozens and dozens of hours in, and he made a choice he didn't like, and he didn't have a save for it, so he just quit. Like he couldn't hack it going on. I'm like, to me, that's kind of a quirk, but I don't know.
That's a sort of advice for having multiple save slots in your games, guys. If you can,
I think he does that too. It's just like, because I don't know. For me, it's like if I'm 50 hours in a game and I make a bad choice and I can't go back, I'm just gonna finish. I can replay it later and make sure I make it right. But
I feel like in the sense of like Baldur's Gate, it's like that game has like choice wazoo out of the anus, right?
Yeah.
Like it's put that on the next one. Choice wazoo out the anus.
Choice wazoo. Okay. Wow.
That's a good put that at the top of the box. Critical Frames. Choice wazoo out the anus. I think that I think like that game is like the whole point of that though is to like make mistakes and like fuck up and do weird things and not maybe like make your bed but lie in it even if you don't particularly love how you've made the bed, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. But
well, I mean, I think let's be real here. I think originally on paper, all of these games with choice, the idea is that you live with the choice, but we've just come to accept that we're going to save scum.
Yeah.
But like they're built in a way where it's like, oh, I think I'm going to tell her that I don't like apples. And then I do. And then she's like, oh, well, I'm not in your party anymore then because apples are my favorite. And you're like, no, you know, but
I would say that's a quirk. I haven't ever known of anyone ever to do that. To like,
I wonder what Wesley's quirk is. He's going to listen to this. I'm sure I know Wesley has a quirk. I wonder what it is.
What Darren's is as well. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Or anyone's. Right?
Darren's the one I could believe doesn't have a quirk because I remember we had a conversation where like me and Wes were like, oh, if I could just rebuy Batman Arkham Asylum on PlayStation for $3, I will, so I can have it on PlayStation. And then Darren's like, well, you already have it on Xbox. Why would you waste $3? And he's like, well, platform's my place. I want to play. It's only $3. And then Darren's like, yeah, but it's $3 for a game you already own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm with Wes on that. Like, you know, I might just want to buy it on PlayStation if it's that cheap. Like, I understand that spending. Like, if you bought the Veilguard on PlayStation and then you bought it again on Xbox, it'd be like, bro, for $60 both times. Like, what are you doing? But it's like, if you buy the Veilguard again 8 years later for $2.99, who cares? I don't know.
Yeah, I normally wait for at least like half price to buy a game on another platform I already own.
Yeah.
I did that for Red Dead 2 recently, which I'll be honest, I barely played that because I've just not had time. It's such a big game and I was modding it and stuff. But I don't know. I think just the portable thing is annoying. It bothers me in many ways because I'm like, oh damn, like I really like I used to like this is the weirdest thing as well because I used to like I technically have 2 Game Boy Colors. I have 2 purple Game Boy Colors from my grandma, and they were technically for me and my cousin when we used to stay around there, and we used to play Pokemon Blue. I've got 2 copies of Pokemon Blue as well, but for whatever reason, like my cousin didn't want them because he's not that much of a gamer like me, and he grew out of it, and I just ended up with 2 of both. So I've got 2 nice copies and I've got Fire Red and all that shit. And I back in the day, again, PSP and everything, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance SP, loved it. I had Nintendo DS. Used to love that shit. Played Pokemon Diamond.
Maybe the novelty as a child, like it made it cool enough. You know?
Yeah, maybe. But like, I seem to remember like not being able to. They never held my attention even then as much as like a Halo.
Okay. Like that's fair because I mean to be fair, I did grow up with Game Boys as well, and I don't know if I ever beat a game on one because I never stuck with it long enough. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's weird. It's fascinating.
Okay, Joe, let's go to our final segment. What we've been playing. Have you been playing anything, or you just kind of want to share like what you're gonna play? I mean, you know, you're trying to finish up Astrobot, and then
If you count playing like half an hour of Minecraft building a roof, and then
that counts.
And then playing maybe half an hour of Astrobot earlier in the week, like the weekend.
Wow, not a true gamer.
Yeah, I've regressed back to remember in the original episodes when you were like starting to get the impression here, Joe, that you don't play games, you don't read news, and you're not actually a gamer. It's like I'm this week I kind of regressed to that. I'll be honest, I've been a bad boy this week, Bryan, but hoping to be back on it soon. What I'll do is I'm not going to talk about that shit because it's not important. Like no one wants to hear about how I've placed some lightning rods and some stairs to make a roof on Minecraft. It's not fun.
Minecraft is satisfying as heck, man.
It is. It's my soothing.
I just wish I had an imagination because I've played Minecraft so many times, and every time I do the exact same thing. I'm going to build a giant house. And then I build one. And then I come back years later. I'm like, what should I do this time? I'm going to build a giant house.
Honestly, like, I think the way to unlock your creative Minecraft creativity is literally just to spend a lot of time playing Minecraft and have a tab open on Google and just Google things and just be like, I kind of want to build that in Minecraft. How do I build it? And that's basically all I do, dude. Like, I'm like, how do I build automated things? So like villages, I do it for house designs, get ideas. I do it for fucking, I don't know, like storage rooms. I just spend all my time like just Googling things and like learning and stuff. So that's kind of what I do. So, but aside from that, yeah, just playing Astrobot still, really enjoying that. But I'll forego my what we've been playing section for yours, Bryan, because it's way more interesting to me. So go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to talk about what I've been playing, which is Death Stranding. And I think what I'll do for the sake of this conversation, because I know Joe's going to enjoy talking about it, is I'll just say spoilers up through episode 5, which is like that's like 1/3 of the way through the game. So if you haven't played the game and you're concerned about me spoiling the first few chapters, maybe skip ahead or leave. But I know a lot of you probably either aren't interested in it or maybe you've already beaten it. But yeah, so I'm through episode 5. So I've basically, the chapters a lot of times mostly revolve around a particular character.
Yeah.
So I've done I think the first one was Dead Man, and then I've done Fragile, and I'm currently on Mama. But I mean, let me go back a little bit here. So Death Stranding, my experience with the game, basically growing up, Metal Gear Solid games were coming out, and I was never really interested in Metal Gear Solid games. So Kojima got this huge fame and notoriety, but I never really thought much about Kojima. I always saw him, heard about him, but I'm like, oh, he's the guy who's done Metal Gear. And I never played Metal Gear, and I didn't think I was interested. Now I'm really interested in playing Metal Gear. But so it's like, okay, I didn't really ever care. Well, then I remember watching the Game Awards in 2015, and there being this whole thing on stage with Jeff Keighley where he's like, this is so sad. We have this award that goes to Kojima, but he has been barred from collecting it because he's been fired from Konami, and Konami says he can't collect it, so I'm going to have someone else collect it on his behalf, and this is awful. And that kind of, took Kojima. Kojima was already huge, but it's like there's another level of blowing up his popularity because this thing's happened to him. He did this Silent Hill PT demo that he was not able to complete because Konami kicked him out, and
very much became like a martyr of publisher tyranny in many ways.
Exactly.
Because all that, a lot of stuff was going on where gamers were becoming very aware of what companies were doing in that time, and then Konami was kind of at the peak of we just killed our main creative that kind of made us in many ways. So yeah, carry on.
Yeah. So then next year we start to see, we hear murmurings of Kojima starting up his own studio, and he already had his own production team, but they were more of a production team working at Konami than they were their own studio. But he kind of turned that team into a studio. And he showed off his first look at what would be his new IP working for himself, which did it unveil? It unveiled the title at the same time, didn't it? I think.
What's that? Sorry, what's that?
When he unveiled Death Stranding, did he unveil that its title as well, or was it just a trailer without a title?
Yeah, it was a title. It had a title. It was him on the beach, and then the
naked with the baby.
It panned up to the fucking BTs, and then it was oh shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So when he first showed off Death Stranding, it was very clear because everyone knew the situation with Konami. This game he's showing off, it's nowhere near ready. This is probably just a CG trailer. And it looked crazy weird. So it was okay, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. I go back to not thinking about it.
Yep.
Go a year forward, we're probably at Game Awards again, and he shows more of it. Longer trailer, more stuff. You see Guillermo del Toro's in the game. Whoa, Mads Mikkelsen. Yeah. Okay, this is crazy. Continued weird stuff from Kojima. And then it became around the third year. It was what do you do in this game? Is it
no one knew. Yeah.
Is it MGS? Is it Metal Gear Solid, but just with a new title? Do you sneak in and espionage, stuff like that? Okay, we don't know. Yeah. And it's no, it's not really. You hear oh, it's not really like Metal Gear, but okay, well, what is it? And then finally, and some of this is vague for me because I wasn't really following the game. I just saw it a lot. Then it became oh, okay, we know what it is now. You're delivering
Tokyo
stuff.
Game
okay.
Show. Tokyo Game Show.
Tokyo. Okay, TGS of 2019.
Yep.
Okay. It's okay, you're delivering stuff. Okay, well, what else do you do? Well, it seems like you're kind of just delivering stuff. Well, I'm sure there's more to it, shooting sections and takeouts and stuff like this and all kinds of stuff. And then I remember once again not planning to buy the game. I'm not a Kojima fan. I haven't played Metal Gear Solid. The game comes out and I see reviews and they're not mind-blowing, but they're good. They're 80s, a lot of 8s, some
polarizing.
A couple people giving it 10s, but a couple people giving it 5s, 4s, and 8s, 9s. It's all over the board.
I think IGN Main gave it a 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
But then all the other IGNs gave it 9s and 10s and shit. It's weird.
And you start reading about it and you start hearing podcasts and videos and it seems no matter what score people give it, it seems pretty clear across the board. You do just deliver packages in this game, more or less. Yep. You are running from one point to another with packages on your back, trying to manage how many you can carry, not letting them fall over, not letting them get damaged, not tripping over rocks, not falling down cliffs and mountains, climbing up rope, putting on ladders for people. I mean, I do remember one of the most interesting things people mentioned when the game came out was like, oh, people online will like leave you a ladder to help you cross, or they'll build a bridge to help you cross, or like you need to charge your battery. They left a battery charger out. And I was always like, oh, that's kind of cool. But like ultimately hearing people say like, yeah, this game really is just delivering packages. I was like, okay, well, I wasn't planning to buy the game anyways, but yeah, that doesn't sound fun. Like I'm never going to buy that. Never going to get that. And I think Death Stranding in my mind had kind of just been this like artsy fartsy, expensive auteur endeavor that, I heard did well enough that he was going to be able to keep making more AAA games.
Which he really is. Like, I don't want to be this person that pretends it's not an artsy fartsy experimental product that he did, but
he took it to another level over MGS with Death Stranding.
Yes.
Now that he was completely free, like everyone's like, oh, he's went full Kojima. Like everyone's used that term. You've used it, other people have used it.
Death Stranding is Kojima distilled. It's like a fucking Scotch whiskey that like compared to a it's like a single malt as opposed to a Scotch. That's what it is. So yeah, it's really good. But carry on.
So basically for me, it just kind of went in the back of my head as this game that came out that did well enough and had its fans and had its detractors, and I wasn't interested in it. And I think unless I'm forgetting something, I think really where Death Stranding started to crop up in my mind at all was just kind of meeting Joe and just him having it up there in his top 5. And then I remember when we did Critical Frames 1.0, which was, not the version you guys are listening to, where he kind of, I remember I was talking about Final Fantasy VII and he was talking about Death Stranding, and we kind of had this thing early on in the first version of Critical Frames where it was like, okay, well, maybe I'll play Death Stranding and you'll play Final Fantasy VII. And then Joe was like, I do that. And I'm like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do that. And he's like, I don't know, bro. Death Stranding, that's super hard to get into. I don't know if I should make you do that. I'm like, no, you play Final Fantasy VII, I'll play Death Stranding. What eventually happened is Joe got more excited about Final Fantasy quicker than I got excited about Death Stranding, to the point where Joe was like, I'll just play Final Fantasy VII Remake, and you don't even have to play Death Stranding because you probably don't really want to. And I remember like I'd flirt with like buying it when it was on sale, and I'm like, oh, Death Stranding, it's on sale, Joe. And Joe would be like, Bryan, are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, I don't know, could be fun. I'm like, so you really just deliver packages, huh? And Joe's like, that's what you do. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to buy it.
You know what's great? Like, sorry to interrupt, but I am like the weirdest guy when it comes to promoting Death Stranding, because people are like, oh yeah, all you do, like, it's weird because people are like, oh yeah, all you do is like walk and it's boring and it's crap and stuff. And then people come to me and I think I'm going to champion the game. Like, no. Like you do all this amazing like missions and all this stuff. And they're like, but what do you do, Joe? And I'm like, yeah, you walk and it's fucking awesome. And they're like, but the guys that just fucking said that like 5 minutes ago to me hate it for that. I'm like, yeah, well, I love it. And it's like, what do you want to say? I love it. Like, I have no shame in that. But yeah, carry on.
You're right to say that, because I am probably at least 10 to 15 solid hours in the game, and you're primarily walking. I mean, you are getting packages and you are walking. There might be slight deviations, but those deviations are not enough to even take away from the fact that you're just walking. And the thing is, though, I want to get ahead of myself here, but I'll come back to that. But I like the game. So
you build it up.
Basically, Joe bought Final Fantasy VII Remake, played it, mostly liked it, didn't like the ending too much. We've talked about it on here a lot.
Yeah.
But then kind of, here I am, kind of just naturally came across like, I want to give this game a shot. The whole director's cut version on PS5 was on sale for $20. So I was like, I'm going to buy it. Worst case scenario, I can't stand it. I lost $20 on it. I bought it, and I bought 3 games in a row. I bought Near Replicant and Death Stranding, and
was it not Astrobot?
Was it Ghost of Tsushima? Maybe, I don't know. Okay. Or, I don't know. I had a couple games, and I put Death Stranding at the back because it was the one that interested me the least, but I wanted to play it. I'm still interested, so I finally got around to playing Death Stranding now, and started playing it. And my first impressions were super good, because I was like, holy shit, the visuals, the cutscenes, the voice acting,
gorgeous, right?
How interesting the world is, like the void out, this corpse they're carrying around, like. The first hour of the game, 45 minutes of its cutscenes. Like, it's almost there's
Metal
not
Gear
much
Solid
gameplay.
4. It's like
It's
Metal
not
Gear
much
Solid 4,
gameplay.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, well, I haven't done much gameplay, but I'm like, this is awesome. This is cool. I'm like really into it. And then I start the gameplay, and it's like, yeah, okay, you're taking this package and you're walking. There's this beautiful scenery. There's
Low
this
Roar's
music,
on. Yep.
Low Roar. This music's playing by this band called Low Roar.
I'll keep coming. Yep.
Beautiful scenery, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of enjoyable. Like I'm trekking along. I got to go up over this mountain, deliver the package. I'm like, yeah, that felt pretty good. And I do it, and then they have me do it again. Second time, I'm like, yeah, it still feels pretty cool. And then like fifth or sixth time, I kind of say to myself, I'm like, you know, I really like everything about this game, even the delivering packages. But at like the sixth or seventh time, I'm like,
can we do something else?
Can we do something different? You know?
Yeah.
And that's when I said to Joe in the message, like Facebook Messenger, I'm like, yeah, Joe, I think I'm liking this a lot. I'm thinking it's like an 8 out of 10. It's kind of how I'm feeling. But like, you know, it's just like you're just walking back and forth delivering packages a lot. Like it doesn't really change up much. And Joe's like, yeah, that's what I worried about, that you were going to hate it. I'm like, whoa, Joe, I don't hate it.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I got to admit, I went a little bit like overboard.
You jumped off the deep end there.
Because
you were like, I'm going to hang myself.
I thought you were going to be like, yeah, this game's like this thing's boring. Like, this is shit. Yeah. I get it. But like, I
wasn't bored.
I apologize. Maybe it was in my mindset. I don't know. I'm a bit rash when it comes to text on social media and stuff. You know this. Like I feel like I'm a different person. I don't know.
You're either quick to defend it or you're like, you fucking hate it. I get it. Let's move on. You know?
Yeah. I'm a very different person when you text me. I'm cold. You need to ring me. People need to ring me more. Anyway, carry on.
But but I was like, no, Joe, I'm enjoying it. I'm just kind of surprised that, like, you know, I'm like, oh, this is, because I'm like, I checked my progress. I was on episode 3 and the game has 14 episodes. And I'm like, oh shit, man, that's a lot for you know, just walking only. But I did warn him. This game is long. Even the main story is probably one of the longer Sony first party games. And now I'm on episode 5, so I mean, I'm only like 1/3 of the game along, but. Yeah. But I don't know, something happened where there just became something really calming and relaxing about the continual walking and delivering packages. And the thing is like, I think it's most important to warn people that what they're getting into, in the sense that, like, you are going to just be walking and delivering packages. Like, don't undersell that, because that is what you're doing. But there is a lot of deviation and nuance in the process of delivering the packages. Yes. It can be, there's rain, there's not rain, there's a snowy mountain, there's a mountain, there's not a mountain, there's a river you need to get across, there's a stream, you have a motorbike this time. Your package needs to be delivered in a certain time limit. Yes. There's a lot of different things like that. And then there's like moments that'll happen in the game that you don't expect, that nobody can prepare you for. Like everyone's going to do the same package delivery mission, but maybe in my mission, I did some stupid turn. I ended up at the bottom of this gully. Yep. And I'm like, how the fuck do I get out of here? And then there's like this perfect ladder placed by someone that lets me climb right out. And it's this euphoric feeling like wow. That wasn't even part of the mission, really. But it just felt so good that, like, oh, I got lost. But then some dude left a ladder here, and then that ladder gets me right back on track, and then I deliver the package, and then the people are excited and happy that I delivered the package, and I'm like, oh man, this feels so good. And you just they keep introducing stuff like that. Like, they introduce, like, oh, here's these skeletal legs you can wear that require energy but let you run super fast. You know, here's a way to take out a BT. You get this grenade you can throw that uses your blood. You know, and they just keep building on. And then I get to this one mission and I'm like, basically I haven't seen any humans. All I've seen is holograms representing humans that are like underground. Then I get to this one mission where this freaking human girl comes out of the bunker, not hologram form. She just comes out of the bunker and she's like, yeah, take me to, you're telling me that my lover is in this other bunker. I want you to take me to him.
Chiral Artist, I think it is, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Chiral Artist, and he's the junk keep guy.
Yeah, he's the junkie, yeah.
And you put her in a body bag, but I mean, you leave her face open so you can see her, but very Kojima, like she's not going to follow me. I'm not going to carry her normal. She's going to be in a freaking body bag strapped to the back of me. That
killed me. The first time I played that, I was streaming it. I was playing Death Stranding when I first played it, and Like there's a clip of me on my Twitch channel where like I was just dying. Like I was crying with laughter because it like goes from, yeah, you can take me, and Sam's just kind of standing there like, because he's very like just whatever. He's very much an archetype at the start of the game. He doesn't have much of a character because he's got a phobia of touch, basically, or whatever that's called, the scientific term. He's got the phobia of touch, and he doesn't like people. He's doing it reluctantly because people, you know, the world's gonna end if he doesn't, and shit like that. And he's just standing there, it's just quiet, and then she's like, yeah, take me, and then it cuts to black, and she's just in a fucking bin bag, like on your back, and then it's like, and I literally was like, what the fuck, Kojima? Like, even for me, I was like,
info thing pops up, and it's like, yeah, your packages take damage. Well, so can the human attached to your back. Yeah. I'm like, okay, like now I'm looking at this girl on my back who's living and looking at me dead. Like I'm looking at her on my screen, her eyes, and it's like, yo, I hope I don't trip and fall and break your kneecap. You know, but that was another cool element of like, oh, here's something else I haven't done, and then like I recently just got to this cutscene. Like I said, I'm only up to like episode 5 where you get some more history on this character named Mama, and like the reason that she's called Mama is because before the Death Stranding occurred, she was in a hospital and she was going to have a C-section to get her baby out. She was about to have a baby. And then the Death Stranding occurred and the building collapsed on her and she was stuck under the rubble. Her baby died, but like it died in such a way that it was like trapped between worlds. So like she has this like shadowy umbilical cord coming out of her stomach, and like the shadowy like dead BT version of her baby floating above her, and she like holds the baby and like produces breast milk but can't feed the baby because the baby's in a different like astral plane of existence. And it's like, so the world building for this game is awesome. The vibes, the feels, the calmness, everything about the game to me is very unique and so awesome. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. You know, my criticisms have just been that, like, you know, I wish there was a little more gameplay variety, but that is what the game is. That's what Joe loves it for. Some of the menus get a little convoluted for me, where it's like, you know, here's like 3 versions of this one thing, and then there's 3 more versions of it, but it's different. And then there's like your PCCs and your level 2s, your level 1s, and there's like your packing stuff and your you have like your ranking menus, and like there's so many menus. So I wish it could. I think it'd be simplified a little more. Yeah, you know, I'd like a little more variety in the sequel, which is almost a guarantee. No matter what he does, there's going to be more variety in the sequel. There has to be, right? Just by iteration.
It's Kojima. He'll vary things up. Like, he never makes a piece, in my opinion, a piece of art or a product just for the sake of making it and making it again.
Yeah.
Every game he's ever made, in my opinion, is different. Even the Metal Gears, like they're all unique. So,
but this is my first Kojima experience. It's Death Stranding, and I'm liking the game a lot. And Joe feels that if I'm this far in the game and still enjoying it, I feel like I'll beat it, but he feels that way too. Like, he was worried I might drop off, getting bored, but like, I'm in, dude. I like Sam. I like Norman Reedus. I like Fragile, the character. I like Dead Man. I like Mama. You know, I like Troy Baker's character, which I know a lot of people say he kind of sucks. I've heard a lot of people say he's like a very weak villain, which maybe he is. But I've liked him so far.
He's not goated villain at all. But he's not done. He's in the second one.
He's in the second one.
And so there's more to his arc that's coming. And I honestly think he's not the main focus. It
seems that the main villain's going to be Mads Mikkelsen based on what I've played. But
well, this is the thing. I would honestly argue that there are antagonists, there are villains, but they're not. Death Stranding is interesting in the sense that, like, the whole theme is that it's about pacifism and using the rope instead of the stick and stuff, and not being violent and moving away from combat and conflict. That, to me, bleeds into the narrative tenfold, just like it does into the gameplay, in the sense that, like, even though there are villains and even though you fight them, even though there are antagonists, you start to realize very quickly that they're just roadblocks in your way rather than someone who you need to fight, as in, or want to fight, rather.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like a Thanos in an Avengers or, a fucking No Country for Old Men kind of job. It's a genuine, like, these people are in your way and they are just trying to stop you from connecting people, and whatever happens has to happen. But ultimately, Sam doesn't want to touch, he doesn't want to fight, and he doesn't want to be involved with these people. He just wants to get his job done and be there for BB. Because here's the thing, like, I don't know if you've got more to say, but all I'll say here is Death Stranding in many ways is very similar in its narrative to things like God of War and The Last of Us. Like, you are a father. It's a father story. It's Sam who lost his child in the Death Stranding, and his wife, or his missus, which is that photo that you see. And it's an entire story about him connecting with his child, and by extension, the world because of that. His child, BB, is a proxy to the world, and the world, in terms of its gameplay, as you go through, gets padded out. So too does Sam as a character and you as a player. And that's ultimately what Metal Gear, that is what Death Stranding is. There is no element of Death Stranding where it goes, yeah, we need to kick these guys' asses. Like, you have to in certain parts, obviously, to get through, but there's no necessarily incentivize. Yeah. It's a necessity rather than, like I said, a desire. So, yeah.
Well, I even like when you pass through mule camps, and for those of you that don't know, a mule camp is basically just like, here's a base with a few guys, where in typical games you would go into the base, infiltrate, try to take them out, stealth kill. But in this game, like, you can like knock them out and tie them up and, you know, fight them, but you don't really kill them. But what's so cool is, like, a lot of times when I go through a mule camp, I alert them.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, I don't want to fight, so I'm just going to run away. And, like, they'll be chasing me, and they'll get in like a little car and try to like, they'll like drive up to me and then get out of the car. And like, it's pretty easy to outrun them, because this isn't like a chase them down, kill them type game. It's just, or I've also went in their base and snuck around and knocked them all out too, not killed them. But what's hilarious once is that I was on my bike and I was full speed, ran right into a guy and just completely knocked him out. But I'm like, bro, you should be dead. You should be dead, bro. He's, you know,
But the reason that is, I think, from a gameplay side of things, is if you did something like that, which is probably a common thing since you've done it. It's most like, I think I've done it as well. It's a common thing to run people over. If you use the car as a weapon in that game and it was a lethal outcome, a BT would spawn from that body, eat the people, and cause a void out, like a nuclear bomb thing, which is what you saw at the start of the game.
Yeah, it's so neat.
In that trailer.
That's such a neat part. That's such a neat way to open the game, too. Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Carry on anyway, yeah.
But I think you know, we're coming up on 2 hours, and I think I'll keep that short, because I think I'm guessing that provided I beat this relatively soon, you want this to be our next sacred, our next Critical Frames Plus, right? Like Death Stranding for sure.
I'd love it, but
and you have a ton to say. I'll have a ton to say at that point. I already feel like a lot of the like build up, like with him announcing the game, is something that I would have wanted to put in that episode. So we might have to go over that a little more again if we do that. But
yeah, for sure.
We'll save that. But my impressions right now, I'm loving Death Stranding. I definitely err on the side of someone who really likes the game. I know this is like Joe's favorite game of all time type material. So like I'm not on Joe's level, but I am on like really like this game.
Yeah.
I'm happy with what it is. Like, I'm glad that it's something different. I've never played anything like it.
To be honest, you're probably exactly where I wanted and expected you to be. It's weird because I get in my hype and I'm like, oh, like I'd really love someone to love Death Stranding as much as I've loved it, but I don't think there's anyone ever going to. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Like, I mean, there might be fucking a handful of people.
There's
in the
people on Reddit,
world.
I'm sure, but you don't know them.
Yeah,
so.
but yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where like, I just don't. Like that's an unrealistic expectation, and where you are now, where you're appreciating the nuance of like, you know, the blissfulness and the environments and the graphics and the presentation and Kojima's crazy, very, very distilled world, and you know, but you also have problems with it, which is understandable. You know, I can't expect you to love every side of it like I do, even though like here's the thing with Death Stranding. I think ultimately like there are objective problems that I can agree to. I think there is a repetitive problem. I think there is a potential gameplay loop issue. I also think there's a potential there's problems with the vehicles as well. I don't think the vehicles are necessarily well thought out in terms of how they collide with the environment and stuff.
I've noticed that the way they collide was like PS1 levels of like, oh, you didn't think this through. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The vehicles definitely feel like an afterthought, especially the bike. The bike definitely feels.
The bike's
more
what I'm referring to. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you'll like bing off things and it'll like you'll still have the inertia of the movement, so you'll fly off to the left or whatever. Yeah. It's kind of weird. But like I totally just again, it's just like I said this earlier. Me and Bryan are talking about it loads in Facebook chat, but it's one of those things where I think the criticisms that Death Stranding receive because they're so high up on my top 50 games of all time, and I guess it could probably be similar to you as well with your top 5 games of all time, Bryan, is that even though I totally recognize these criticisms in all of the games that I have so high up in my rankings, I recognize it, but I also don't care just because they're there for a reason, and the good is so good, and those things truly don't bother me. Like the lack of variety in Death Stranding, the over padded nature of Ragnarok, God of War Ragnarok, and the Atreus sections and stuff, they don't bother me like they bother other people. That's fine if they do, 100%. Like I totally, your opinion is very valid, but they don't like pertain to my experience at all. And yeah, I just think Kojima really did strike gold from an artistic standpoint with Death Stranding. I love how much you can see all the emphasis and the inspiration from like things like Akira with the bike. You can see Neon Genesis Evangelion inspiration, like you say, Bryan.
Yep.
You can see Kubrick inspiration massively in how he shoots scenes. I just think it's brilliant. I really do. I think it's a fantastic game, and it's one of the few. It's the only game, in my opinion, that you were talking about, like the repetitiveness of the missions and the camps and stuff, like do vary up, but ultimately it is very repetitive. The one thing I will say is like, that I think is mind blowing is how they have, for lack of a better term, weaponized the environment to be your main enemy. The ground is your enemy. The mountains are your enemy. Like when people say this game is a walking simulator, one thing I will say about this game is that the walking is not necessarily easy. You go on certain terrain pieces, certain mountains, certain cliff faces, and you can scan the terrain. And as you scan it, it'll tell you like from blue to yellow to red, and red's basically impossible to walk on. Yellow's harder and will take stamina or make you slip, and blue is like okay, you can just walk on it fine. But like you have to use the triggers and stuff, and you have to consciously walk and stuff. And it's not just like you're walking and you can kind of like just put an elastic band on a trigger and tie it to a wall and push forward and it goes forever. Like, yes, you can do that.
You wouldn't get anywhere.
You'll end up on your arse so many times because Kojima and his team, the way they've done it is they've like made it so you have to be intentional with where you're traversing and what you're paying attention to. Because if you're not, Sam will stumble, he will fall over, and he'll hit the deck harder than fucking a lead balloon. And yeah, so I think that side of it alone, without going too much into specifics and leaving it for the Patreon exclusive episode for the first 30 days, I just think it's mind blowing. I think it's a brilliant game, and I just love it.
It's something has to be said for how like I don't even fully understand why I enjoy walking across the world.
It's weird, right?
Because like just last night I did this long run and my battery died on my skeletal legs and I had a bunch of stuff, so I was moving at like the slowest pace possible,
dragging your stuff along.
I wasn't bored at all. I was literally just walking up a hill slowly with no energy, just admiring the scenery, just walking, knowing I'm getting closer and closer to my destination. And then there'll be moments where it's like you see that you got to cross a river and you're not sure if it's too deep or not, and you get an endorphin from that because you're like, I got to figure out how to get around this.
Yeah.
Like you'd think that you'd just be annoyed because you're like, oh, this thing's in my way. But no, it's like, oh, okay. Do I lay down a ladder? Do I see if someone built something? Oh, maybe I could climb up that mountain and skip over that rock and then I can avoid the river. And it's like your endorphins start to go off and you get excited about it. So
it uses level design incredibly well. You know, like games oftentimes have great level designs and stuff. And, you know, like there's footage of Kojima making both Metal Gear levels and Death Stranding levels out of Lego. And it's mind blowing. Like he's making the structure of the levels that we play out of Lego, and it's nice because there's so many games where like the level design is secondary, the maps are secondary, but ultimately the in Death Stranding it feels like they fully play into the gameplay design, whether for better or worse depending on your opinion. And I mean, I had a similar thing once in my first playthrough. I remember it clear as day. There's a waterfall section where I have to transport. I can't remember. I can't spoil it for you. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but it's further on than you are. I have to transport someone, and I go across this waterfall, and there's like rocks on this waterfall right to the other side. But there's like red parts in the middle which I can't walk on, and it will just sweep me up. Me going, oh, I think I could do this. I've got some floating carriers that hover on the water. I can do this. I've got like a rope thing that you can go up a mountain or down a mountain with usually. I'll put that rope down and I'll go across it and I'll use the rope to keep me steady. Nope. I literally went across this water. I got to the red bit. I was like, I'll be all right. Swept me straight off my feet, straight down the cliff. I died. Everyone died. It was the funniest fucking thing in the world. But it was like, that was fucking awesome. That is a memory I will remember forever. With this
you don't forget it. Yeah, I went off a waterfall once early on purpose because I thought I could just do it.
Yeah.
And it showed him going down the waterfall, and then it like reloaded me, and I'm like, I thought I was going into a cutscene, and it was like, oh, well, no, wait a minute, I died like a dumbass.
Yeah. It's a brilliant. It's not
time for everyone, but if it hits for you, it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm glad you're gelling with most of it. You know, like
I get what you mean by like when a game's like, it's like for instance like Final Fantasy VII Remake for me.
Yeah,
it's not a perfect game. That ending that you had problems with for sure, but in my eyes, Final Fantasy VII Remake might as well be perfection. Yeah, I love it like it's perfect, like it's flawless.
Yeah,
don't change anything. I don't care. So I get that totally, and I'm sure people listening the same way. It's like when you love something, you just love it, and like sure you got to concede to like stuff could be different for other people to make it a more accepted experience. You're like, yeah, but I don't really care because I just got what I want. So
yes, exactly. No, you bang on. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we'll get out of here. This has been an awesome episode. Lots of good PlayStation news, great Dragon Age previews, sad news about Concord, which has been most of our news about Concord on here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But then some great discussions about Death Stranding. I hope you guys look forward to that Patreon episode in less than a month from now. That'll be cool. Yep. We'll be really excited about that. I'll just have to try to be able to keep Joe at an hour or less for that because that's like 4 hours of material there. So I'll have lots of questions about the story, I would imagine. But if you guys want to send us an email or a voice clip, send that to criticalframes@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on Twitter, that's @criticalframes. If you want to become a All Access Pass member and you want to support us for just $5 on Patreon, that's patreon.com/criticalframes. But I think that's pretty much it, guys. We really appreciate your support. Go leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify if you would like. We just appreciate you listening. So, Joe, do you have any final words from the Death Stranding?
No, I slightly off topic. I bought a new capture card. It's 4K, 60 FPS, no beautiful. HDR available. But if I go 4K 30 FPS, I can get HDR. So and my money's not even 4K. So
you'll need that for your PS5 Pro.
That's exactly why I bought it. But in many ways, like it's because I've had a 1080p capture card already, and it would be cool to play PS5 in 1440p. I've not been doing that apparently, which I didn't even realize. So that'd be cool. Hopefully it works. I've not tested it yet, so if it's not good,
I bet it was expensive.
Amazon. No, it was actually. I was actually looking for like the most cheap, like sort of good but like affordable, like run of the mill, no extra bollocks software capture card, and that was it. And it was like £150, and it's from a reputable brand. So
sweet. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast. We will see you next week. Peace, guys.
Peace. Critical Frames, a PlayStation podcast, is created in partnership between Bryan Arvett and myself, Joe Smalley. It's available on all mainstream audio and video feeds. All music featured in the show is by Caleb Webster. We're incredibly grateful to the following All Access Pass patrons for the support they've shown for this independent venture: Boba's Feet, Darren.jpg, Diente D. Hombre, Irish Phoenix, and Music Tree.